I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to the live stream. Hope everybody's had a pretty good week since the last time we was on. And we're going to go around to everybody here and talk about their bees. It's kind of nice having Tom and Melissa with us tonight, and they live out in Missouri, so we can get a good idea of what their weather's out like that with their bees. And of course, then we have Lee behind the camera, and he's in down in Louisiana, and then I'm up in North Carolina mountains, and then we got Spanky right off the North Carolina mountains, so you can see a difference in the elevation with the bees. Anyway, Spanky, how's everything going down your way?
It's going all right. They were flying today. I saw them out there flying when I got home. So I don't know if they're bringing anything in. I think the pollen started.
Yeah. I think, what is it, the skunk weed or something like that, or maybe some mushrooms up here are kind of, they kind of get some pollen from that, I guess. Is that right?
I don't know. Everybody's been sneezing. The phone claims there ain't no pollen out, but everybody's been sneezing like there's pollen.
Right. Yeah. I've been sitting here blowing my nose since we started, so anyway. Now you're going to make me sneeze. Go ahead, Tom and Melissa.
Bless you.
Thank you. How's everything going out with you guys out there in Missouri?
Well, so far so good. We've it was pretty cold the week before, and then it's warming up this week. Today was like in the 60s, and we did some OA last week when it was I don't know, mid 40s, I guess, something like that. So we did a little bit of winter cleanup, I guess you'd say. Right. And the bees, Tom, I was doing the OA, then Tom would kind of get in them after it was, had settled and check to see what was going on. And most of them were, you said, clustered in the top box, right?
Close to the top. Some of them were on the top of the frames. I did have some fondant. That's just a precautionary measure. I wasn't really excited about. Some of them I was okay with, but I wasn't super excited about how much stored honey that they had going into winter. So I did go ahead and put, I fed liquid fairly late for here, October, maybe into the very beginning of November. And they stored some of it away and did all right. But it seems like those smaller clusters, just with a liquid feed, when you start getting cold like that, they won't really mess with it a whole lot. So I went ahead and just threw on a lot of stuff. This is the first year I'm using it.
The Hive Alive patties.
Yeah, the Hive Alive patties. I got it for a pretty good deal from our local bee supply. And I thought, you know what, I just wanted to try it out. So we actually, generally speaking, will put some sugar bricks on them, and we haven't done that to this point. And I don't know, maybe I'll consider not doing it. I'll just keep an eye on them, but just kind of keeping an eye, poking in them, seeing how everything looks,
Right. So do you ever do the camp method any, or is it just
So we actually do like a candy board sugar brick. It's actually Kent Williams' recipe.
Okay.
It's sugar, apple cider vinegar, citric acid, honeybee healthy, some water, I think. I don't know. We didn't make them this year.
Yeah.
So but they seem to do real that's what we usually do every year. And they do really good with those. Like Tom said, we tried out the Hive Alive patties because he was able to get a good deal from Isabee's, our local bee store here in St. Louis, and they seem to be doing okay on those so far. So
yeah.
Lee, man, how's it going down your way, brother?
Going pretty good down here right now. We got a bunch of rain coming in, I believe Saturday. It's supposed to have a 100% chance. But we got, I'd say, mid to upper 60s today. We're running about 59 right now. And the bees in the yard are flying, which I hadn't got out there to see very much. It was just the other day whenever I was off and ran out for a minute. They were flying around pretty good, bringing in some pollen, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white. But what it's coming off of right now, I'm not sure.
So you guys, I'm hearing maybe some nectar coming in down where you're at. Is that right?
I hadn't went into the hive to see if I got nectar, but the way they're coming in on that landing board, some of them don't have pollen in, and you can see them kind of come in and they make that little stop and then drop down. So it's like they loaded with something. I know Joseph Rawls is probably about an hour or so from me, and he said they bring us some nectar in his location.
Wow. And I think I overheard you guys talking about something about in Texas or some swarms or something like that. Is that correct?
I heard who was that? What was that? Queen V's Jeremy, I think, was saying something about some swarms the other day they were seeing in Texas. I hadn't seen any here yet.
Wow.
Now at work, whenever I open the door to the crane, they'll fly up in the crane every now and then with me, 2 or 3 bees. So I've started putting the top off my water bottle on the dashboard with some water in, let them come in and have a place to drink.
Right. That just amazes me how far ahead you guys are than the rest of us. It's kind of not fair, to be honest with you, Lee. I don't like it.
Well, I'm hoping it don't happen like last year. We thought we was going to get an early spring. Everything started flying, started trying to bud out, and then all of a sudden we got a hard freeze. And I mean, it knocked all the privet out. The blackberries froze off my bushes here, and the tallow trees, it just curled the leaves up, turned black, and they fell off.
Wow. Hey, Spanky, what was the temperature down there where you was at today? Because it's like 50 up here on the mountain. Was it cooler off the mountain?
It said that it was 53, but it felt cooler because there was a wind blowing.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's 42. Supposedly it's going to be in the 60s tomorrow.
Wow. I'll take some 60s for around here. That'll be really good. That'll let the bees kind of get out and do some cleansing flights. They were out just a little bit today up here, but not a whole lot. So, and I did notice that I do think this colony doesn't have a queen in it because the numbers have dropped almost in half with the last little warm spell we had. So we'll get to see if that'll turn into a swarm catching trap or we'll requeen it with something else. So, well, I tell you what, we're going to introduce the coolest beekeeper on YouTube. I don't know if anybody's watched his videos, but Yappy the Bee Man has got to be the funniest guy I've ever met. If you're around him, he's going to make you laugh. There's no doubt about it. I met him at the conference, at the Hive Life conference last year, and you kind of talked to him, became good friends. He gave me some pointers on my hives, which I appreciate greatly. And he overall has been a pretty good friend. He calls me and talks to me, and we can talk about bees. And you guys are gonna get to hear a little bit of that tonight about Yappy. He thinks about bees a little bit different than a lot of us do, and I really like having somebody that look at things a little bit different angle. But I first seen Yappy on YouTube after watching Randy's videos. One of his videos popped up, just like Mr. Ed's do, and a lot of the other cutout guys, JP. So he's one of those first YouTubers that got on here and kind of made a name for themselves. So, but anyway, let's bring Yappy in here. Hey, Yappy man, how you doing tonight?
What up? How's my audio sounding? My loud? Too loud? Not loud enough?
I think you're about right.
Sounds good.
Does it? Good deal. No, I only asked that because I was watching a live stream here a few days ago, and they brought a guest in, and you just couldn't hear him. And it was like he couldn't. I don't know if he could scream into that microphone, and you could have even heard him. But I'd rather be blasting you out and turn it back down as opposed to not being able to hear you at all.
Right. Yeah. I think you got to be the coolest beekeeper. Look at that photo right there. Now that's a nice photo right there. I tell you, brother, you look good right there.
That was I bought a new 360 camera, and I was kind of wanting to play with it a little bit, so I carried it out there next to the hive one day, and just kind of set it up and hit record for a little bit just to let it go, and that was part of that had come out of there. It was pretty cool.
Did you see what Shannon wrote on there?
Oh God, shame on you, Shannon. You know what? So they wouldn't. Now I can respect it. Okay, so if word gets back to Cayman about him not letting me bring Frank to the Nobby, I can understand. I respect that. But since I didn't have Frank and I couldn't run around, yelling Frank to everybody, I had to come up with something else. And it was like, hang on a minute, Marco. And it didn't take very long. It was like the first time you yell out Marco, everybody's kind of looking like, what the crap is all that about?
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, I think it was like Grammy. She was like an aisle over or something. All of a sudden I hear her yell out Polo, and that got everybody going for the rest of the weekend. So yeah, we had a good time with that.
Yeah. And that's the thing about having you around, Yappy. It's always a lot of fun. But you're really known for cutouts. But can you just tell us how you kind of got into beekeeping? What kind of got you started in beekeeping?
It depends on which aspect we're looking at. I mean, I since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to interact with something with nature. I mean, seriously, I just always wanted to have my hands interacting, whether it was catching bugs or snakes. It goes back to when I think I was somewhere around, God, I had to been, I think, about 8 years old. I'd found an injured duck, what I thought was injured, and literally brought this thing home. And at the time, my dad was redoing our bathroom at the house, and he had one of those, the older, the old cast iron bathtubs, the big, huge bathtubs. Well, he had this big, huge cast iron bathtub that they had just gotten completely repowder coated, getting ready to put it in. And I didn't know where else to put this duck. So I put the duck in that bathtub and I threw a blanket over top of it just, to keep up with the duck. And the duck was really pretty cool. Well, my dad gets up about 3:00 in the morning to get ready to go to work. And he turns the light on in that room. And all of a sudden, just like out of nowhere, this duck head pops up out of the blanket. Man, my dad freaked out. And it was just, I jump up because I thought he was about to kill the duck. And, anyway, I mean, it goes back to that. But what got me into the beekeeping thing was actually nothing to do with bees. It was actually for, it was what, 14 years ago. My wife and I got into herbal medicine. Just, anything plant, tree, root related that you can take and utilize for either a food or a medicine or, whatever. And that's what kind of drew us into, the bees, because when the class came up and we were talking about, medicinal properties of honey and how, the health benefits of it and the different things in the beehive, I went, hang on a minute now, this is something that I can mess with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, okay, yeah, I kind of like this. So it just so happened one of the people in the class had a beehive in the back of a barn wall. And they said, man, if you come and get them, you can have them. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of beekeeping neighbors, I talked to them about trying to find out, what it would take to get these bees and rehome them into a box. I mean, they gave me equipment. They got they went over with me to get the bees out. And, that was where my first colony came from, was the back of a wall. And I've told this story a time or two. What's funny about this is that when I saw them taking this colony that had been in there, it was very well established. I mean, a bunch of bees, and then cut and comb and the way they did everything. When I walked away from that, I kind of started thinking back, and I was thinking about what I saw and what they were doing. And I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than this. And I really started getting into it and looking, and I come across JP the Bee Man, my mentor. And, when I think one of the original, he was actually, to my knowledge, him and 628 Dirt Rooster were really pretty close in that window of getting in there and showing bee removal stuff and beekeeping stuff. But I ended up, I kind of found JP first, and that's where I started watching how he did things and learning that. And, the doors just started opening up from there, from seeing something, wanting to learn it, making connections, and then becoming. And so here we are, 12 years later. And I could say that just about every little dream that I ever had hoped to come true in this adventure has definitely happened.
Yeah, I agree with you there, brother. I tell you. David's got a question for you, Yappy. I think all of us might want to know what happened to this mug.
Oh, so I think Greg Burns just to kind of you know soften the blow of me not chasing him down and getting after him over my mug. It somehow ended up in the silent auction to benefit the scholarship funds and everything, and yeah, it kind of ended up over there. And there was God, you'll have to give me a minute because I can go back and look at it. But it ended up, it got put in the silent auction and it was sold or bought, purchased by one of the um, people that were there. And he absolutely, I think he's going to make a shadow box for it and everything else hanging on his wall. Did tell him, I said, well, it's okay. He's only in Tennessee. He ain't that far away. I can find out where he lives so I can get my mug back.
How much does a world-renowned Yappy mug go for? Do you know what it actually brought?
It was like, I don't know, like $8.
Nah.
No, I'm kidding. Listen, you know what? I never did ask him. I actually never did ask him. The last I saw, it had a bid on it for like $45,
Okay.
somewhere in there. So I mean, he's probably in that $50 window. Which I mean, that's to me personally. I mean, that's pretty respectable for a little mug with a bunch of names on it.
Right. Yeah. There was several other names because it kind of got passed around. I think like maybe Brian at Castle Hives may have had it for a little while, and Lisa may have had it, and it's kind of made the rounds for some reason. I don't know why that happened.
Well, here's the thing that cheeses me off, and this is so that mug ended up at the conference in Slidell when I was there. Okay, I was there. The mug was there. And it was getting passed around behind my back, and I think there was a picture or two where people were holding up. Lee probably did, but where they were holding up the mug, and you could see me standing there and making fun of it and everything. But
and you thought they were your friends.
Yeah, seriously.
Well,
You're hanging around some shady characters there, Yappy.
Listen, if you can't make fun of your friends and be laughed with, if you can't laugh with them while they're laughing at you, then
that's the truth.
It's all good, but yeah, I'm really happy for the opportunity that something that went around. It was put out there and passed around, and people got to sign it, be a part of that. Under my name. Right. That's really cool, as far as that goes. But for what that mug did and the person that got it, they put their hard-earned money in to have something that connected, was the connection of all of us together and in a story. And there's only one of them out there. I mean,
that's right.
There ain't gonna be another Yappy mug.
That's probably they probably bought it because they're planning on auctioning that off again later on.
Yeah,
but, gain some value, and that's the retirement plan right there. Is
if I ever make it to television, which that's up to God right there as far as that goes. But that may be that one thing that gets out there, and people be like, I got the Yappy mug. It's got to be worth at least $1 million.
That's right.
There you go.
Oh, sure.
I feel like they should at least replace the mug that they somehow ended up with. As just hey, you know what? We took this mug, it ended up in our possession, but we want to give you a different one or a new one, right?
Oh, you can't replace the Yappy mug.
No. But I tell you, I'm gonna say this about Greg Burns and the Nature's Image Farm crew and the stream team guys, okay, which they were all in it together, having the fun with it. But no, before you get too far off of that, Greg Burns actually did send me a replacement mug. Okay. Because I was having to go around drinking out of jars, and they don't stay as cold as long. But out of nowhere, I get a box in the mail, and I open it up, and it's like Greg's a green, same color as my shirt, green Nature's Image Farm mug with a big thank you letter in there for not driving Ohio and killing him.
See, that was pretty noble of him. You're around good people when they may have used that to better the the community there, he replaced it. So you know you're around good people then.
Oh yeah. Well, I knew it was in good hands and where it was going from there anyway. But um, yeah, Greg is definitely Greg, Brian, Bruce. Absolutely the three of them together. I mean, absolutely love them to death. But now, I mean, this has turned into such a great community. I mean, the overall of I can just keep naming names. Randy, 628 Dirt Rooster, Fred Dunn, Jeff Horchoff, so many people that I could name that I could call them up and just, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I'll be in town. You want to go to lunch? Yeah, let's go do it. And it's all just family. And and then you run into them at the conventions,
That's
and
right.
Ricky's the same way. He was saying where we met a year ago, and we talked a couple times on the phone. We talked about his beehives. We talked about some thought processes that I see with it, and where some of this would go. And here we come a year later, and I walk in the door at Nobby, and one of the first people I see there is Ricky and Ruth, and walking up to them, and it's just like we've known each other forever, and that's just what's really great about the relationships built over just something as simple as a bug.
Oh, absolutely. I've said that before too. Melissa and I started we didn't get to go to the first Hive Life. That only had a couple hundred. That was still kind of in that weird time with the COVID thing or what have you. And for some reason we weren't able to go, but we went to the second year one. And ever since then, the people that we've met, there's been a connection there. It's true friendship, to say the least. Right. But, and I said this here this last year, even if I would not have purchased a single thing from Nobby, wouldn't have taken part in any deals, and I wouldn't have sat down to see any speakers, I still would have gone. So
Oh yeah, and I spent way more time out in the sales area than I did at the under some of the speakers. All three of the conventions that I've been to, and it's not because I didn't want to hear anybody or whatever. It's just when I get out in there and I start saying hello to a few people. I mean, it would take me an hour to walk just the length of one aisle.
Yep.
And it's humbling. I mean, it's absolutely humbling when you're standing there, you're talking to somebody, and somebody will walk by, and they're you can see them looking over, at you, and they're afraid to say something, you know, and it's like, hey, what are you doing? Come on over here,
Right.
say hello. It's amazing. I still don't understand it sometimes, but I mean, it's above and beyond humbling. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there was a couple of times like when we walked by Randy at his booth or whatnot, and we didn't even like stop and talk to him. We're just like quick hi, hug, and walk on, because it's like there's so many people that want to talk to him or talk to Jeff and Mike and everybody that we run into. It's like, I don't want to, I know you guys. I don't want to take up any more of your time, because there are people here that want to say hi, or that have never met you, or things like that. So that it's fun to see everybody, and what.
Oh yeah.
Unless I have that same thing. It's like I don't want to take too much of their time, because I want to share that person with everybody else, right? But I do want to speak to them at least for a few minutes, and you're dead on with that. And I really think this year everybody seemed like they got more time to talk to people. I mean, heck, I talked to Yappy the whole entire time at the expo. He'd go away for a few minutes, he'd come back, and we'd carry on, have a good time. And my group loved cutting up with him. It was great.
So what was nice is, so last year at Hive Life, I was teasing Tom, because Tom's a talker, as he sits here silently and I talk. Anyway,
I'm just behaving right now, okay? I'm just started.
So it's been kind of like an ongoing joke, because last year at Hive Life, we really wanted to see Ian's talk, because he's coming all the way from Canada. It's the only time we're going to get to see him. What did we do? He stood out in the hallway when I was with him the whole time talking to Corey Stevens. The entire out, we completely missed Ian's talk. So that's kind of like been the ongoing joke. Like, oh yeah, Tom's got to talk. We're going to miss this speaker. But what was nice about Nobby this year is you're going to get that digital copy of the entire conference. So it was like, come on, we can't talk to anybody. We have to get in there so we can see this speaker or that speaker. You know, Bob's talk was standing, not even standing room. Like you couldn't even stand in there. There were so many people in there. Like, well, we'll get to just sit on the couch and watch it at home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We thought we would just take most of the time this year, like Melissa said. And, you know, even though we had made out a list of all the different speakers that we were going to go check out and see, we said, well, let's not make it a priority because, again, we know that we're going to get that digital copy later in the evenings when we're getting ready to go to bed. We can watch some of those videos then. But at this point, let's just go chat with everybody that we know, meet new people that we want to see, and just say hello to everyone and get to fellowship with everybody. That way, you know, sometimes you can get so into even like people doing some of the videos can get so much into just behind the camera and focusing on that. And I think even Bruce had kind of said it best where he said, you know, I really didn't take a whole lot of videos because I was just kind of living in the moment, you know? Right. And so that was one thing we enjoyed doing was just living in the moment and having good conversation with people, learning stuff out in the trade center area. And we did get to see a few people, but, you know, we'll look at the videos later.
Yeah, you're right, Steve. Yeah, that's right. What we just popped up there. Most YouTubers are just like regular people. Yep, just good people.
Yeah.
Well, Yappy, let's talk about this. I think last year you ended up with a massive beehive cut out that had 70 queens and about 10 pounds of bees. That thing was a monster. I got to watch that video. It was pretty cool. Can you tell us about that? Just watching all those queens hatch out and run around in that hive.
That you know, in my world, you know, mine, Randy, Mr. Ed, whenever we talk to a customer on the phone, that 99% of the time that customer said, man, they just showed up yesterday. I mean, they just got here. You know, I mean, they hadn't been here that long. They weren't here last week when I was cutting the grass, and now all of a sudden they're here. Okay. And you know, I've learned a long time ago to say, and I understand, it doesn't mean just because you just noticed them this week, doesn't mean they weren't.
Oops. Oh, he's gone. He's back.
No. Okay. You got me?
Yeah, you're good.
So I get a phone call from the customer, and she says that what this is it's a little rental cabin. You know, like a little Airbnb, whatever you want to call it. And they had a couple of fishermen that were in town, stayed at this little cabin, and while they were there, somehow they noticed some bees flying out back. Don't know what, you know, just whatever, but she said, you know, they weren't there before. So now I'm off my game. It's beginning of the year, and I'm like, okay, no problem. They probably just showed up because I mean we're right there in swarm season. In all said and done, it could have been very easily been a swarm that had just moved in, and based on I don't know what, but I said, well, I'll be out there, you know, the next day or maybe 2 days from there. It was, you know, a pretty quick turnaround on getting up there. So I load up all the equipment. I take off up there, you know, and through the video, you sit there and I see this little corner of the post where the wood and the support post meet each other. And there's this little batch of bees sitting there. And it was weird because they were just kind of hanging out there. It was a overcast, actually rainy kind of day. Well, not really cool. And I get there and I'm seeing these bees kind of piled up on that post, and I'm going, all right, you know, something's weird, but they're not flying. So, okay, maybe this is going to be something where you know, they just have moved in. Everything's still, they just moved in. So, I kind of vacuum around. I could see that they're going up in, you know, how they're getting up in and where they're going. So I said, well, let's go ahead and cut this board and we'll pull this down and, you know, probably a couple pieces of comb, no big deal. Buddy, I pulled that thing down and there's 4 feet of comb and another 2 feet of bees behind that. And I'm just like, holy cow. And so now I'm sitting here going, I'm 45 minutes from home and I've only got 1 catch box. I mean, I'm already calling my wife saying, grab me another catch box and drive it up here because I'm going to need 2 of them. So, I mean, I'm just vacuuming bees. I'm doing this, you know, my normal process. and the bees are chill as all get up and go. Excellent bees. And then all of a sudden I get to where I'm starting to cut into the brood comb and I find a queen cell.
Oh,
So I take that queen cell and I go and I set it off literally over by the vacuum. Didn't think nothing about it. Just, set it down. I think it was a section of comb, but I set it there and I went to take a break when I set it down, shut the vac off, took the lid off, set the comb down there, walked up to my truck. I come back and I happen to look down and that queen cell's opened and there ain't no queen in it. And I'm going, what? So now I'm going, great. Now I've got a little queen running around here. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, I go back to vacuuming and now I'm finding more cells. And so I'm bringing them out and I'm setting them down. And it's just, man, the story's just writing itself. I mean, I'm just making the video. It's writing itself. Well,
right.
After I got to thinking about it, it's like, you know what? If that queen cell just hatched out, it's time. I mean, if that one's out, then I don't need 6 or 7 of these things running around here.
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed my little fillet knife and I started popping cells open, and boom, here they come jumping out. And I'm throwing them in queen cages. And while I'm going through all that, dude, I kid you not, I just happened to look back over and I found the first one that had got out and I lost.
Oh.
She's walking across the top of the box of my vacuum box. And I'm like, grab her up, put her in. But we ended up, I think we caged, what was it, 6? I think 6 queens.
Right.
We caged 6 of them. Then I found a 7th open cell and put, which I think I vacuumed that one. So when I dumped all the bees in the hive, just to be sure, I went ahead and put a caged queen in with them, and then all the rest of the queens ended up going to another beekeeper. I wasn't going to sit there and mess with making up hives and doing everything. I found somebody else to give them to and, have at it. It ended up later. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it ended up later when I went to go release that queen that I had caged, and if I remember correctly, she wasn't alive when I went to go release her. But you'll see in that video where you saw the queen that I did have, big, dark queen. I ended up putting a little red dot on her. But you know what the funny thing is did you happen to notice the hive that I put her in?
I think I may have known what hive that went in, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. That might be some guy from the Carolinas that makes these horrible hives.
I think I've seen that.
So
I heard he does some hokey work though.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you what, right now my bees don't care. But that was truly honest. And when I ended up once I had that thing opened up, I knew exactly what hive I was putting these bees in, because they literally were going right back into what they were coming out of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And man, I put those bees on, it was 18 or 20 frames, brand new Premier Foundation frames, everything else that I had stuck in there, and dumped them all in there. And they had probably 16 of those things filled out in about 3 or 4 days. That's how quick they took to that. But I just checked on those bees. Now that was about last April that I put those bees in there, around last April or so, when I did that removal. And I could go out to that hive right now and probably pull 5 frames of comb out of that thing and actually harvest honey from it still.
Wow.
That's
awesome.
how good that colony did.
We had an opportunity last year for a private school in the St. Louis area near where we're at. It started off, they asked me about moving some hives from a school location to the new location that this charter school was combining with. And we obliged and we moved the hives. And it was later on that year, the lady who was handling all the hives and helping to teach the class had said that she was having some surgeries and needed some help. It had been this was in the early spring. It was about a month and a half since she had been in there. And I knew how much nectar and pollen we had flown in at the time. So I was a little concerned that she hadn't added any boxes or been into them within
all spring, really.
Yeah, for quite some time. So there were 7 hives total. By the time we left there, I had gotten them all clean. It took me about 2 hours to get them all because there was some burr comb built in spots. And we ended up finding one of those hives had queen cells, just as you were speaking about, Yappy. And they were all starting to emerge that day. So I usually keep some extra equipment with me. And luckily I was able to find, I think I had 6 or 7 queen cages in my possession in my truck.
They just kept popping out. It was like they were popping out faster than we could get the cages.
As soon as they would pop out, I grab her, put her in a cage, set her aside. That way I could still assess what's going on. If there's still the original queen happens to still be in there, probably not likely, but in case she happens to still be in there, we're going through and I see another one. She's chewing her way out. So I pop the top, put her in a cage, set her aside. And at the end of that one hive that we were working on, I had 6 of them virgins sitting on the side. So I kind of went through them. There was a lot of bees in there. We cleaned it up. I reorganized a little bit, added some space to it, moved the honey to the top, left room in the bottom. And what I didn't find the original queen, so I made the assumption that she probably had swarmed. So I took one of the virgin queens and released her back inside there, hoping that with the disruption that we had going on, they wouldn't try to ball her. So we did put her back in there, put it back together. And luckily everything worked out well because when the teacher got into it a couple weeks later, she said that there was eggs in there. So we were all good. So that was a pretty fun experience for us, honestly, finding that many queens just popping out at the time. You're just plucking them out, putting them in cages and setting them aside.
Yeah.
It's got to be really exciting for you guys.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things and one of the most enjoyable that I do when I get into removals is trying to read the signs of what I'm seeing, because there's never any really good information in regards to how long they've been in there. Have they swarmed recently? So the bees that I got into on that big hive that we were just talking about, there wasn't anything flying when I got there. It was literally, it was time for that to happen. During that time of the day, it was overcast, but there still should have been bees that were flying. And what's really interesting is that now I'm sitting here saying, okay, did they actually swarm already with the mated queen, or did they get held up by weather and she's still in here? It's just the details unfold as you go, and it was amazing that there wasn't a single bee coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what I feel that happened was that when the fishermen were there and they told the landlord lady about the bees flying around, I think that was actually the main swarm. But when you look at that video, to see the amount of bees that were still in there is incredible. It's like, that's that weird. Okay, I went through that thing pretty good. There was not a mated queen in that hive, and timing wise, with the cells that were hatching out, says there should not have been a mated queen in that colony.
Right.
But the action of the bees said they were about to swarm, or they're holding up for some reason. But there wasn't anything to swarm with. But if there was more bees than what was in there when I caught that I can't imagine the size of the swarm that left there.
Mm-hmm.
or what happened. It's just, there's always oddball stuff that could happen. They could have ended up swarming out of there and something happened with that mated queen and they lost her. And then the majority of those bees came back. There's an option. But I like to try to look at the clues and try to understand what it is that I'm dealing with once I get there and see what stages they are in.
Is that the biggest removal that you've done in reference to the amount of bees?
So the biggest removal I've ever been involved in was actually one that we did, it was about 10 years ago. And this was when that first weekend that I had met JP, the B Man, Shawi, and all them, we were doing. They had what they called the bud gatherings, and it was some of the old. I don't mean it by age, but some of the original members of the B Masters group. Before Facebook, there was chat rooms on, said .coms, and there was a B Masters dot whatever, and they had different chat rooms, and people would go in there and they talk bees and do that. Well, once Facebook came into it, they moved over into Facebook and had the B Masters Facebook group. I had, after meeting and speaking with JP, got invited to come over to Mississippi to one of these weekend gatherings events that they had. And one of the first big removals I did was with that group of people in a old farmhouse wall that was literally 100+ year old farmhouse. And this is a house that had 12-foot ceilings all throughout, and it was rough cut lumber. Your walls were made out of 4x4s, not 2x4s.
Yep.
And I want to say that they had a colony that they had known it to be there for over 75 years. It was 12 foot tall and had rolled over a little bit into the thing next to it. We pulled, by the time they got done vacuuming and dumping bees into the box they had, we had reframed 3 deeps of comb, of good comb. And I think they ended up leaving another 2 or 3 boxes on top of that and dumped the bees in there and just let them acclimate, because JP actually, in all that mess, found and caged the queen.
Wow, that's crazy.
Absolutely insane. But he killed it when he found that. But they threw that queen over there in that box, and it was all kind of chaos. But they let them acclimate to the box and move over there for a couple of days. But it took 2 days to do that. Probably 5 people all taking turns cutting and vacuuming.
Wow, that's impressive.
One I've ever been in. Yeah.
Do you find that the area that you live in there, pretty far south, is there, I'm guessing, and I don't know exactly where you live at, but is there a lot of water or kind of bayous, would you call it, in and around the area that you are in?
Not where I'm at. I'm in North Alabama.
North. Okay.
Yeah, JP and JP Shawi, which is Bruce Sharweth. He goes by Shawi. Now they're down there in that, swamp area of life. And I tell you, New Orleans is amazing. That's where JP and Shawi's about an hour out of New Orleans. But that is the perfect storm for if you're an insect. Roaches, termites, and bees thrive in New Orleans, and you just can't get rid of them. But if you're ever going to practice on anything, that's the place to do it. But where I'm at's basically mild winters for the most part, more rain than snow. We get a week or so of a cold window, and then it's back to being halfway decent weather-wise. And the worst part about my situation is when we'll have it like it was 50-something degrees today, intermittent sunshine. My bees were flying. It was pretty darn nice outside. And and we definitely have dragonflies. But I had bees flying and coming and going. Well, it could be a couple of days from now. Our red maples are popping pretty good right now. There's a lot of the winter reeds that are coming up and popping right now, and all it's going to take is one little freeze to hit and screw all that up.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we're in that weird line.
Yeah.
I heard a guy say recently to me, and I thought this was pretty interesting. I never heard anybody talk about it, and I'm curious to know what your thought is. He said, and this was from, I believe it was, he told me this from a gentleman that had told him, and this guy was an old beekeeper, and he said that the green line from the in the springtime moves about 5 to 7 miles north every day, as the temperatures start warming up in the spring. That's kind of what he was referring to. What's your thought on that?
I don't know the balance in time frame, but I totally agree with that, because I sit there now. I watch posts from people that I know that are knowledgeable beekeepers, and it starts around the area of Mobile. Okay, when I start hearing people, but I gauge it by watching swarm calls. Okay,
Okay.
the last couple of days, swarm posts have been popping up all over Texas, South Texas, right along,
Yeah.
south into Texas. Man, they're starting. Hey, first swarm of the year, first swarm of the year. All right, I literally this afternoon got a text message from JP, and he turned around and told me, he said, that first swarm of the season, and it was a little coconut ball sized amount of bees hanging up underneath an azalea or some kind of little tree thing. But he got his first swarm call today, and you know it makes us wonder, was this something where, was it an abscond where somebody found, doing construction, maybe try to spray him or do something, and that's all that got left, got away. Tree cutters are still cutting trees right now. Is this something that may come from there? You never know when they're hanging up on whatever they're hanging on, where they actually came from.
Mm-hmm.
Time frame wise, we would say, oh well, it's swarm season, so that's it was a natural split off of something. But every once in a while, that's probably what it's going to be. But you still have other avenues of where they could have come from. It don't matter. It's a ball of bees. Hopefully, you got a queen. You're going to do the same thing you're going to do with them, regardless of where they came from.
Right.
You can put them in a box and give them a home. But the funny part about it is it's a matter of the attitude that they bring with them. Generally an absconded colony that's trying to find a new home, maybe a little bit pissier than what you think. You reach up over there, go to grab them and check out that temperature, and I don't know. I mean, you don't know the history of a used car other than what they tell you, right?
Right.
Left turns going to church on Sundays only. but
Well, speaking of getting stung, Yappy, you did I don't know why you guys like to do these yellow jacket removals, but you did a monster yellow jacket removal, probably about the size of the dirt rooster's yellow jacket thing. It's pretty big. So tell me, what's that like removing yellow jackets?
It's honestly it's a lot more fun. All right. The setup of what we had right there was, a lady called me. She says, I've got 2 beehives in my barn. You need to come get them. I said, okay. But she's calling me, and it's like September when she's calling me, and I said, how long have they been there? She says, I don't know, but my husband, every time he goes out there to try to start the tractor, she says that them things just eat him up. And I went,
ding, ding, ding.
I said, how about do me this? I said, can you send me a picture of what they're in? I said, I want to see what she said. Well, one of them's in a box and the other one's in this like fire pit thingy. Yep. And I'm going, yeah, okay. Still ain't, I'm going, there's a chance you got yellow jackets. She said, right. No, they ain't. They're honeybees.
They're always honeybees, aren't they?
Okay. I said, so, I get over there and we're taking a look at them. And I mean, it's just quick as I walk up. I mean, I'm seeing the paper coming out the sides of that little burn pit thing. And I'm going, those ain't honeybees. I said, those are I'll kill you laters. And she's like, what are you going to do with them? And I said, we're going to make some video. I said, we're going to have fun with these. So I ended up, and I'd like to, not throwing name drops out here, but I'd love to thank Terry from Guardian Bee Apparel for having sympathy for my poor backside after seeing that video and hooking me up with a legitimate suit. Right. My suit ended up riding up the backside, my backside over there. Oh. And I mean, I had it pulled down. It was tight, and it wasn't, it was just one of them single layer, generic suits. Yep. I mean, it did the job. But man, I'm holding the camera with one hand, the vacuum thing with the other, and I'm narrating as I go, and all of a sudden it was, oh, that one got me in the butt. I mean, I'm telling you what, for every woman out there that's ever got a tattoo on her backside, you got my respect, because I'm telling you, them little yellow jackets were trying to stamp me like there wasn't no tomorrow, and I wasn't having it. But the yellow jacket things are fun, just because you're I have it, they're quick and easy. You know, you do the job, you have a little bit of fun with it, and you go from there. Where, you know, I'm there's so much you're rehoming bees. All right, you're just relieving the world of yellow jackets.
Yellow
Oh
jackets and bald faced hornets.
yeah, I ended up I got a call for two separate nests within a mile of each other. Both of them were neighbors of mine, and one of them was hanging up in a on a little tree and on a brush. And I've got a little process in how I go and remove those, but I ended up the one was up on the side of a barn, right where the eave and the wall met on the barn thing. And man, I tell you what, I literally climbed the ladder and was up literally right up underneath that thing. And they were coming in, they'd go up in their nest and didn't care nothing about me. And I'm thinking, man, you know, I might want to. I almost wanted. It was so close to just wanting to mess with them and play with them, just gently, just to see how far I could push it before I let them go meet Jesus. But no,
So
kind
there
of.
was a couple years ago, we would get up in the morning and there'd be some the bald faced hornets on our garage door, and so we couldn't figure out. Tom was like looking in, like, was there a hole in the siding? Were they getting in the siding somewhere or in the eaves or whatever? Couldn't find a nest anywhere. We're looking, and we just have two like Bradford pear trees, unfortunately, in our front yard. And we're looking in these trees and we can't see a nest anywhere. Like, they have to be close if they're like on our garage door in the morning. Can't find them, can't find them. And then I went into our upper driveway one day, a couple days later, and I was talking to our neighbor, and I just happened to turn around and be at like the perfect angle, and I could see that nest up in the tree, maybe 20 feet, hanging right over our driveway.
It was about 12 to 13 feet up.
Yeah, just hanging right over our driveway. So we're like walking under this thing every single day, not realizing it's right above our head. So we have she's 21-year-old daughter, but we have 18, well, they're almost 18-year-old twin boys. And so that was like 2 years ago. So they were about 16, right? So what do 16-year-olds like to do when there's something dangerous around? Get out their pellet guns or their paint guns and just, shoot it at the hornet's nest.
Mhm.
So
That was a good time.
So that's how we take care of hornet's nest at our house. We just, throw baseballs at it, shoot paint guns at it, and see who gets stung first.
Well, see,
right.
about 5 years ago, the first. I mean, I've seen them hanging in trees everywhere else. Okay,
Yeah.
but there's like the little black hornets, and then there's these ones that are like, rocket ships that
Mhm.
have. And I don't when you get into the hornets and stuff like that, I can't tell you one from another other than they're all mean and ugly. But there was a nest. We were on one little country back roads, and we had stopped literally in a Y and had got out for a minute. I don't know what we were doing. And all of a sudden I turn and look up, and about 15 foot up in that tree, there's, the biggest beach ball sized hornet nest hanging up in that thing that I've ever seen in my life. And we're sitting there and we was getting ready to leave. And I picked up a rock. I told my wife, I said, get in the car. I have to know.
You have to do it.
I have to.
You can't
And
not.
she's like, you are a flipping idiot. And I said, probably, but I have to know. I couldn't. I'm gonna tell you this. If you would have given me $1 million to hit that thing, I would have missed it every time. One shot, one kill, and I knocked a hole right through the center of that thing. And man,
They come pouring out.
they come pouring out. Hang on the cough. And but as soon as I hit it, I went, oh crap, because as soon as I hit it, I knew I was in trouble. And I
Your wife's
jumped
not
in the car.
opening the door for you.
I jumped. Well, I'll tell you what, they would have had to, if they'd have had to have killed me, because I'm telling you. But she's just like, but they started dinging the car, and I'm telling you, it was like hail. They were hitting.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I'm going. She's sitting there. She's like, we got the air conditioning on, and all of a sudden I'm going, recirculate, get out of here, because oh my god, they're gonna find a way to get in, right? So here I'm taking off because they're just ding, 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 ding on the car, and I'm kind of getting freaked out now. We were a mile down the road, and them things were still chasing us.
Oh,
Oh my
man.
God.
Well, we
Gosh.
finally got away from them, And all of a sudden, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, "Oh, Lord, please, Jesus." I said, "Do not let anybody else go through there in Redneckville with their windows down because somebody's going to die."
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah, I was worried about it. But yeah, that would have been not so good.
Something else. I had another experience with the bald-faced hornet. So I own a landscaping company here in St. Louis, and we had some really good high clientele customers in the area. And on this property that we were dealing with, it was a nice residential neighborhood. The properties were only maybe half-acre lots, but they were really large homes, and they were fairly close together. We would work on this property at least 1 to 2 days a week, preparing for this large party that they were going to have. And we would park out in the street with our trucks and trailers. And there was 2 small maple trees. They were red maples that were between the curb and then the sidewalk. And they were only probably about max, maybe about 18 to 20 feet tall. As many times as we were there, and just it goes to show you how well Mother Nature can camouflage herself. When we realized that there was a bald-faced hornet's nest hanging over the street where he would have had probably no less than plenty of party goers there that he was preparing for this large party he was having, right? When I looked up and seen it, and I realized this bald-faced hornet's nest was only probably about 6 to 8 feet above our heads, and we never ever got tagged, kind of like you said, Yappy. You never got messed with, right? And you weren't that far under him, and I don't know why we never got tagged before, because we were always out there making noise, using tools and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I let them know about it, and they said, "Hey, we know you have bees. Can you remove them?" And I'm like, "Well, absolutely. Let's take care of this for you." She says, "Whatever needs to happen, just take care of it. Put it on my bill. It's done." I said, "Okay." Well, I don't own, or at the time didn't own, a full bee suit. I just had a jacket, and I thought, okay, that's fine. I came up with a game plan. Climbed up on a ladder, and I'm looking at it with my bee jacket on, and there's no response. And me thinking, I'm like, well, generally speaking, when you want to distract honeybees, you hit them with a little smoke, right? Well, I can tell you that doesn't work with hornets. The smoke does not work, not at all. No. As soon as I smoked them, I realized it was a mistake, rookie decision, completely through and through. Now, I actually never took a sting from that entire. They kept hitting me in the veil, and they were hitting hard, like you said, bouncing off the truck windows. They were hitting my veil pretty hard, and it was very audible, the strike that I was getting from it. So I quickly then cut the end of the branch, cut the branch off, shoved it in a 5-gallon bucket, sprayed some parts cleaner, put the lid on it, and we actually had to come back about a week later because there must have been enough foragers out. They started to rebuild the nest in a real small fashion. Took care of it again, and all was good. But that was a fun lesson. And I didn't get the stinger end of that, but it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yappy, you deal with a lot of really wild animals. Some of the stuff I can't believe you actually mess with. And I've got this really wild animal here at the house, and I'm thinking I probably need some training with it. And I was wondering if you might be able to help me with it. It's been pretty rough, and you think you might be able to help me?
I have, I've swam with dolphins, sharks. I've jumped out of airplanes with parachutes and everything else. No, I ain't got nothing for that. There ain't a snowball on that. No. Can't help you. Yeah.
But now I do want to talk to you a little bit. Me and you have talked several times, and I really like talking to you because you really go in depth about the communication of animals and kind of understand them. You can almost talk to them. And I think the longer you're around honeybees, you can kind of get that same feeling of communication. I don't want to rub my hand really fast across the hive. It's going to blow them up. But you have trained a lot of wild animals, and you have that communication with them. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then talk a little bit about how that transfers into honeybees?
You have to figure out on the nature side how to listen. You can go get a box of bees. You can put them out there in the yard. It could be a dog walking down the street that comes up in your yard. That nature has to read you there was something that I ended up, people always ask this one question, do bees actually remember me? Do they know me when I come to the beehive box or whatever? Yes, bees have memories. They have a short-term and long-term memory, and it's amazing. And so there's one aspect that we don't give them, nature credit for, but I I just have been blessed with the ability to actually just sit back and listen to whatever it is I'm dealing with. Um, a lot of people know about me in the bird thing. I do
Right.
falconry. All right. And I literally can take that picture right there. That's an American kestrel female. And that's the smallest falcon that we have here in the States. And that that bird, we were down at the beach and I had her tethered and I was letting her actually just glide the wind. What she would do is she would sit there and that wind would get going and then all of a sudden she'd just start hovering just
Mm.
right above my hand and then land and then hover back up and then land. But when I get out and deal with the birds, you have to understand from that animal standpoint what's going on. Okay. Nothing will If something is in fear, it's going to try to get away from you or try to defend itself, at whatever level. Well, it's the same thing with the birds. When I get a bird and I put a blanket over its head and I put anklets on it and jesses and tied it into a short leash and put it on my glove, for the first, it becomes the rodeo, just like a horse, first time with a saddle. We're going for a ride. And I'm having to explain to this creature, I'm not going to hurt you and I'm not going to eat you because nature only thinks of what it's going to be eaten. But I connect with these things on their level because there's not a dog in this world, there's not a squirrel in this world, there's nothing that actually speaks the same language as we do. But they understand body language and they understand what you're doing. And with the bees, back years ago, I literally quit wearing a suit the day that I saw JP the bee man working bees without a suit. And I said, if this guy can do it, so can I. And I told my wife, I handed her my bee suit. I said, put this on here, bring the phone with you. I want you to take a couple pictures. She looked at me. She's like, you're on drugs. I ain't going out there to them beehives. And I said, no, I need you just to be there in case somebody's got to call 911, just in
Right.
case I get my butt handed to me. But the bees taught me how to actually handle them, how to treat them like ladies.
Right.
And you realize that go ahead and wear a suit, but if you're gonna, I'll say this: as long as you know you're not going to die if you get stung. I mean, everybody's going to swell, but as long as you don't
Right.
have the breathing problems going into anaphylactic shock, go without one glove. Just go without one glove because that will make you treat those bees 1,000 times more gentle
That's true.
because you got skin in the game. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely. Absolutely.
now you get a little bit further into this, right? Okay, we'll go without two gloves. All right, because yeah, your hands, whatever's going to swell, but you're going to learn what pissed them off real quick, and you build up into what I did. My thing was I just walked out there. She had the only suit that I had on, and I said, I'm going to go in this box and I'm going to do this if it kills me or not. And I'm telling you, everything nice and slow, and you breathe. It's weird because you can actually hear me breathe in a lot of my videos. It's embarrassing, and because I'll be doing something, and all of a sudden I'll go, and I'm letting that breath out, and it's because I breathe completely different when I'm around my bees, because I don't exhale into them and agitate them with my CO2.
Yep.
But
That's the really cool stuff that you're talking about is that how to act in those bees, that movement or the CO2 or anything. I love hearing you talk about that. I mean, it's just amazing. The longer I get into bees and have someone like you talk about this, the better it makes me understand, you know, how do I need to act? How do I get a communication? This hive might be more aggressive. I have to act different in this hive, right? It's like a kid. You have to treat it just a little bit different, right? And how do I get into this hive? This is a great hive to get into. So, just exactly what you're talking. That's so special, Yappy. I appreciate you talking about this stuff.
Well, I'll be in Conroe, Texas, in about 2 weeks with the Winding Creek Apiary Bee Supply Store, and Miss Julie has promised me that she's got one of the, if they're not Africanized, or the pissiest bees she's ever had. And she's gonna let, but I told her, I asked when she called, wanted to get us down there. I said, have you got Africanized bees anywhere close to you? She said, probably, yeah. Can I play with them? Now, granted, I mean, I'm not going to run down there without a suit on. I mean, I'll have a suit on, but I want to work Africanized bees in my own way.
Right.
What I was saying earlier was, it used to be when, JP taught me, cut open the wall, give a little puff. All right. We still use the smoke and everything when we're inside doing a removal. I got to the point to where I said, I don't like to leave somebody's house smelling like a hay farm,
Right.
that just caught on fire.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that there's probably, I mean, I've always got the smoker with me, but there's probably once, maybe twice out of the, 50 removals that I'll even light a smoker. And I almost never, it has got to be horribly bad for me to ever light a smoker in somebody's house anymore. I just don't
Oh,
care.
yeah.
And if I can do that, if I can do that in your house, all right, why can't I do that in my apiary?
Right.
It's just knowing what's in the winds, and
That's great advice. I think that you saying that, Yappy, I think that every beginner bee class needs to have those words being said.
Absolutely. Yes.
Know how to treat the bees, and
Yep.
understand that sometimes colonies can be a little more aggressive than other times. Sometimes it's the time of day, the conditions around them, the low pressure's coming, all those things that they're sensitive
Yep.
to, right? But
Yep.
like you said, knowing how to treat the bees, and when you have the skin in the game, so to speak,
Yep.
That's the times that you can understand how aggressive you're being with them or not. So I think that's wisdom right there for sure.
there's some very serious basics that get so overlooked
Yep.
in bee club meetings that it's actually it's almost scary sad.
Yep.
All right. And this came from, there was a gentleman that was local. He ended up, he went to a good friend of mine that's got a honey production company here local, and he went and bought a couple of beehives from him, buys these hot colonies, and he gets them home, puts them on the stand. And about a week later, he's calling me, and he says, hey, Yap, he said, man, he said, I don't know what's wrong with these bees. And I said, where'd you get them? He said, well, I got them from Terry. And I said, well, why are you calling me? Why don't you call Terry? He said, well, Terry told me to call you. And okay, fine. So I said, well, what's the problem? He said, that day he brought them over and we went through these boxes. He said, man, they were the nicest bees in the world. He said, but we've been in these boxes 3 separate times. He said, and they just eat you up. And I said, okay. I said, well, you're gonna go and inspect when next? He said, well, you know what, just whenever. I said, you go get your wife suited up. I said, have her hold the camera on live video. I want to see what you're doing. Okay, no problem. So an hour later, here he's, pops the lid off, sets it down off to the side, and he reaches down in there and he pulls that first frame up, right? Nice, packed full of honey. And then he slams it right back in. And then he goes to the next frame and pulls that thing up, does one of them on the camera, slams it back in. I said, hey, brother, I said, you're going to stop what you're doing right now. I said, put that lid back on there. I said, run for your life because the bees are about to kill you. He said, are you kidding me? And I said, well, if they don't kill you, I'm going to. I said, because you have no clue. And he starts laughing. He said, okay, whatever. So I said, I'll see you tomorrow. So I get out there the next day and I walk up, t-shirt, ball cap. And remember what I told you, bees have memory.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it doesn't mean that they remember the difference between Ricky walking out in the yard versus Ruth walking out in the yard. Okay. But they just know that brown-headed looking thing that just walked out here pissed me off yesterday. I'm going to get them back. So I
Right.
start walking out to this beehive, and they start lighting me up.
Oh boy.
I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. Grab a smoker, puff, puff, puff. Okay. He's like, see, I told you. He said, something wrong with them bees. I think they're Africanized. And I said, the only Africanized thing about them is whether or not you left a banana peel up underneath them. I said, because that's the only thing that's going to smell anything like that. I said, no, I said, just chill. So I go over and I pop the top, smoke, set it down for a second, set the smoker over. Okay. Take the lid off, set it down nice. I said, now from here on out, you pay attention to everything I do. And I went through an entire beehive, found the queen, put it all back in there. And from the time I took that lid off until the time I put it back on, didn't get a single sting. He said, I don't get it. And I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, and his wife was standing there, and y'all just forgive me because I'm going to tiptoe around this very gently, respectfully. I said, if you treated your wife the way you treated that beehive, I said, she'd have probably hit you with a cast iron skillet over your head. He said, what are you talking about? And I said, you treat them like ladies. I said, the beehive is 97% female. Depending on the time of the year, it could be 99 to 100.
Yeah.
I said, so you treat them like ladies. I said, because if you want to get to the sweet stuff, I said, you respect them and you go slow. I said, but if you go too fast, I said, what happens? You whap right in the back of the head.
Yeah.
I said, now, if you'll always remember that, I said, and what you saw me do, I said, you go a lot further with these bees. Guy turned around and called me back 6 months later. He said, I'm checking my bees without a suit. He said, thank you so much.
That's awesome.
That was awesome.
But that's the things that they don't teach you in, the basic understandings of how to even inspect a hive, how to relate to the bees, how to go slow, how to do. Yeah, there's a ton of things we got to learn. But the one thing that you do is that you treat them with respect, because they are a creature just the same as the red-tailed hawk, as the macaw, as my dog, as the 6 spiders that I have in jars right now. Everything. That's Elvis right there. Let me tell you, that bird right there. That bird came to me. There was my wife worked for a guy that had that one, a scarlet, which is more of a red and yellowish colored one, and he had a cockatoo, which is a white bird. Okay, had all 3 of these over at his shop. He left them in there all the time, and he's getting a little bit older, and I'd go by and see him her at work. Wife tells me, she says, you need to start paying attention and getting to know these birds. I said, why me? She said, well, you're the bird man. She said, but the guy who had the birds and owned his business, he was deathly afraid of these birds. And that bird that you just showed the picture of, that bird had actually been in a cage and not come out of his cage for over 5 years because he was afraid of the bird. So
Wow.
that bird came to him. There was a guy that was going to take that bird, and literally he said, if you don't take this bird, we're just going to let it go. We'll throw it out in the woods, and whatever happens, happens. I don't care. All right. So the bird came to him. 5 years goes by. I think he ended up, supposedly he tried to get it out one time, and the bird bit him. And from that point on, he wouldn't touch it again. So he'd feed and water it. He's nice to it. It was cleaned after, but it just no interaction. So I open up the cage door the first day. Now I'm tasked with having to do this. Open up the cage door, and that bird's just like, okay, no, we ain't doing this. And I'm having to chill the bird. So I start to reach in to the bird, and the bird would literally just like squawk at you like I'm fixing to kill you. And I had to figure out this bird. Well, how am I going to get this bird out of the cage? All of a sudden, it just something that's registered, and it hit me. It was like, what I'll do is I went and got a dowel rod, and I put a one of the pool noodles on it. I said, if you're going to bite something, then just bite this. So I took that pool noodle on a stick, and I put it up in there, and he kind of hit it a couple times. And when he realized it wasn't going to hurt him, dude steps right up on that dang stick. Just steps right up on it. And I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Because I'm deathly afraid of this thing. I mean, the things can break your finger. But I pull him out of the cage, and I set him up on a little perch thing that I made for him to get on. He steps over on there. He goes to dancing and everything else. He's all happy. But I also had to learn, you don't touch that bird with your right hand. If you approach that bird with your right hand, he's going to try to bite you. But if you do it with your left hand, he'll walk right up on there. My 5-year-old can walk up and put his left hand up. The bird gets right up on there. Wow. But if you put your right hand in there, he'll never bite you to try to hurt you. But If you put your right hand up there, he'll have a come apart on you. That's learning. That's listening to what they're giving you. If this don't work, let's work it out a little bit different. And now that bird, the bird that I swore I would never trust before he ever came to me and now lives with me, I swore I'd never trust that bird. I put him on my shoulder right there and never think anything about it because I could trust that bird with a 3-year-old to not hurt him.
Wow.
Why do you think that it had to do with you had to let the bird walk onto your left hand, not your right? What do you think that has to do with? That's really interesting.
I have no idea how old that bird is. That bird could be 15 years old or it could be 50. But something in that bird's past, something has happened. I don't know. I mean, it could be something simple that his previous owners always put a left hand there.
Mm-hmm.
And he could have had a bad experience with a right hand. Somebody popped him in the nose or did something, whatever, with the right hand. Who knows? But I have worked with him and gained his trust to the point now where I can at least turn around and put my right hand up and say, step up or switch hands. And he will do it without a problem. But every once in a while, he's still really ticky about that right hand. But I can reach in there with the left hand, do anything I want to, and he's fine with it.
Interesting.
Just having to listen to the bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you sure do have a lot of birds, I tell you.
I do. That's my Harris Hawks. Those I hunt with. That's Smith and Wesson. All right, they're actually brothers. Now I didn't name them that. They came to me. They came to me from a fellow falconer, and he had those for 2 seasons, going on 3, and decided he wanted to get female birds, which they're bigger bodied, bigger feet, for what we do. And so I acquired those 2, and they're absolutely hilarious. Their red-tailed hawks will hunt as a single bird, and if they get another hawk in that area or whatever, they won't have nothing to do with it. They don't want to interact with other birds. But the Harris Hawks are actually kind of like crows. They will hunt in a cast or in a group of birds together. So those 2, literally, when you hunt with them, it's like having 2 fighter pilots in the woods, man. I mean, they just going at each other, not at each other, but one of them will bypass the squirrel while the other one's coming into it. And if that squirrel's running forward, one of them will fly over and block it to keep it from going any further as the other one comes in to try to catch it. They're insanely cool.
I tell you what, that's got to be really cool watching 2 birds hunt. I mean, that's got to be incredible to watch.
It is. I mean, just hunting with the one bird, like, with the red-tailed hawks that I have, just hunting a red-tailed hawk is fun in itself on the chase. But to see 2 of them, I mean, I've got friends. Now, the guy that I got mine from, he still has 2 of them. And we can take his 2 and my 2, put them up in the trees together, and it'd take them a few minutes to kind of sort their little who's the boss issues out. But we just throw them up in the trees. We start walking, and they finally will catch up. But you'll have 4 or 5 birds coming at and behind you like a pack of crows, and getting on a squirrel, dude. It's crazy fun.
Well, Yappy, we're going to open up the live chat to everybody. If anybody's got questions for Yappy, you're welcome to ask him real quick. And Yappy, you can stay on, or if you want to jet, and I know you're a busy person, you're welcome to do that. But we'll get Lee to throw that link up here in just a second, and you guys are welcome to come and I forgot about that picture right there. But you're welcome to come in and ask Yappy lots of questions. He's a great person to ask questions. He really does have a lot of knowledge that'll really amaze you. Especially those spiders you're going to be. You got a movie set or something with some spiders from you? Is that correct, Yappy?
I got I got called a couple of weeks ago by a production company that there's a scene in a movie that they're producing that had to deal with some spiders doing some different things. And, we live in a world of computer animation and CG and all that other jazz. And they didn't want to literally have to CG this and make it that fake look about it. They wanted it to be as real looking as possible. So they they called and asked if I could source some spiders. They kind of gave me what they wanted, and I called around a few people, and we kind of agreed on what we were looking at. But um, I ended up having to go a couple of days ago and hang out on a movie set and um, run some spiders over a few things so they could video that and then take and they'll copy and paste this to have that natural look. But I ended up literally had to order 6 spiders out of New York just for this production. So now I'm babysitting a bunch of spiders.
Wow. I bet Melissa would like to see some of them spiders, wouldn't she?
No, I don't do spiders.
Now, you know,
Snakes and spiders, I'm out.
yeah. When I got down to where the product where this where they were shooting that day, and everybody, I was in another production as a bee wrangler, bug wrangler, back over the summer. So there was some people that were on this set that I knew from previous set, and everybody, I come walking in and I'm carrying this little tote bag that's got a bunch of jars of spiders in it. Well, you know, so everybody wants to see the spiders, right? So I pull the jar open and I'm like, yeah, check it out. And they're like, can we hold them? And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, will they bite? And I'm like, well, everything bites. I mean, it's just a matter, you know, but these are chosen for the fact that, you know, even if they bite you, there's not really any medical significance to you being bit by one. But yeah, we try it out. Dude, we mess with these things all day long. And this one girl comes along and she's holding this spider. And all of a sudden she says, I think it's biting me. And it had I don't know what it was doing, but it had took the 2 little whatever fuzzies in front of it and literally had locked on her hand. I'm going, let's try to move it. And dude, it wouldn't move. And I'm going, oh, she went, oh, that's weird. I'm going, all right, just let me know if your hand swells up later or something. She didn't die. She didn't die.
So is this your plan? Like, is this your master plan to get onto the big screen yourself? You start by, you know, spiders, spiders for movies, and you just kind of sneak your way in
I have met and because I can't tell you who they are now. Now get back to me at the end of the year.
Okay.
Because if I told you who the 2 main people have been that I have met, one from one production, one from the other, it would blow your mind. And I have a picture that once I show this picture off, it's going to be like, holy cow, you know, I can't believe you were holding that person's leg, you know, in this scenario of. Now the other one, you know, we were on set and that really didn't have an interaction with, but the first one, I just hope that somewhere they're giving an interview and they're talking about the scenes that he was in and everything else, and he goes and tells the story about, you know, his interaction with me. I just want him to say my name one time. Just say my name one time. But I'm getting somewhat of a name, at least in Alabama, because they do a lot of movie stuff here.
Yeah.
But if you want to get some kind of if you're going to interact with something alive other than people in Alabama, call Yappy, because he can probably source it and have it on set for you. But it's crazy. Oh,
didn't you and Randy do a video together, or like a little cut or something? Was that correct, Yappy?
So 2 years ago, I had a guy called me. I was coming back from North Carolina, of all places. We went camping up at what's that little old town that is like a mini Gatlinburg over in North Georgia? Some little old town. You guys in the comments will know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's going to be the next start. You don't know how close you are to that, Rodney. But there's a little town that's like a little miniature Uber Gatlinburg over in North Georgia, and we went up there, met with some friends that my wife grew up with, and we were literally leaving town on our way back. My phone rings, and this guy calls me. He says, "Hey man," he said, "I'm I'm so and so from Big Cash Productions. He's like, hey man, he said, I got this concept about a TV show. I want you to be on this TV show, man. I want to do a TV show about you. Ain't that cool? Aren't you excited? And I went, yeah, it's pretty cool. He's like, he said, no, I'm serious, man. He said, we want to do a TV show with you. And I said, okay, cool. He's like, okay, is this Yappy? And I said, yes, you got Yappy. I said, the Yappy who's on his way home from vacation and has got 3 kids in the back seat. My wife's sitting here. I said, I'm woohoo, yay. I said, but I said, I've been down this road a time or two. I said, I'd love to get it. Well, we ended up, I brought Randy in on it and in this concept of what we were trying to do as far as this TV show. Got everything, brought in a few other people, and then all of a sudden at the end of all that jazz, that Joker from Texas, the Bizarre show came out and completely just screwed out. No, what? I don't know what you mean. I don't. Whatever that means, Roddy. Bless you. Sorry. But,
I tell you what, I think we would all love to see a Yappy the Bee Man and Dirt Rooster and JP and Mystery Ed on the Discovery Channel. This would just be incredible. Just flipping back and forth from you guys. See who's got the bigger colony, who's getting bee stung. I mean, it would be just awesome. I don't know why they don't do something like that.
Well, see, when the guy called me up, he's like, man, he said, you're gonna get bees 500 feet up over the water tower, 500 feet below ground. You get bees out of anything. Give it to me. And I'm going. I was like, dude, ain't nobody getting bees 500 feet below ground, okay? And they're sure as heck ain't climbing up the top of that water tower to shake a swarm. I mean, Come on, let's keep it real. And that was one of our little deals. Was he just totally not keeping some of this stuff real, but we still tried to make it some fun, right? And we had to have something that we were going to video that had a little excitement to it. Well, I had a lady that actually called me up. She said, hey, I've got this beehive that's in this really big, expensive lake house. Dr. So-and-so owns it. And, they've had these bees in here for 10 years and nobody can find them. They've had beekeeper after beekeeper come by. They finally just said, they had one guy that come in and literally cut holes in this whole bedroom wall from one end of it to the other, screwed their entire drywall, everything up. And he took advantage of them. And I hope that son of a gun's watching right now, because you're an idiot. But he cut holes in all their drywall. And then he come back out and he said, yeah, well, he got some honey out of the wall, but that was about it. And, charged them a whole bunch of money and didn't do nothing for them. Not a thing, except for costing them about 10 grand and having them fix their wall. So the lady is telling me, she's like, are you interested in coming? I said, yeah. I said, I'll find them. I said, I'll find them and I'll remove them. I said, but it's going to cost you this much money. And she's like, okay, come on down. Just make sure it's before Thanksgiving. Said, no problem. So we set that up to be our job that we were going to do for the TV show. I called Randy and I said, I'll meet you halfway up, meet me there. We could do all this. Dude, we literally were there. We'd shot a bunch of stuff outside while we still had light. And then we go inside the house. We go up the stairs. We go up in this attic that you could put my house and probably all 3 of my cars and my barn in their attic. Okay. Is that big of a house. And I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out, because I could see where the bees were coming and going from the outside. And I knew where they were at. So we get inside and you've got the trusses coming, or the trusses coming down, and you got plywood on all that, right? Well, they had a dormer outside, on the outside of the house right above the bedroom window, and it was all fancy, built into all that and everything. I said, they're in that dormer. We get up in the attic, man, and we're looking, and it's just plywood, and they can't figure out where everything's at. All of a sudden, I said, this is where they're at. And I moved some insulation out of the way, and as soon as I move the insulation out of the way, a bee comes up, pops me right in the face. Oh. And I'm going, hang on a minute. And I reach up underneath that little 2x4 what they were setting all the trusses on. And I reach up into there, and I'm getting stung, man, like crazy. But I grab a big old piece of comb and I pull it back out, and I said, "Here's your bees." And they're filming this, right? And all of a sudden, the producer goes, he said, you could hear the old lady, the homeowner lady. She said, "Are you kidding me?" The producer goes, "How long have we been here?" And the cameraman goes, "About 10 minutes. He said, "You mean to tell me," because the old lady, she's like, "You mean to tell me," she said, "I've had everybody under the sun come in here for 10 years, couldn't find me." She said, "You've been here 10 minutes and you're holding," and I was like, "Well, sorry for you, but yeah, here's your bees." So, dude, we get up under, we cut this thing open, and it was crazy amazing how much comb and nasty was in there.
After 10 years, I bet.
But oh god, it was a mess. But yeah, that was it was a lot of fun. We spent the weekend doing that, getting all that videoed and removing it and everything else. The funniest part was trying to get stuff Randy through a 1.5 2 foot little space. If I ever get to release that video and show that stuff off, y'all are gonna die, because I mean, there was one part where I'm in this hole, okay, and the woods are right here, and I'm armed up into it, so I'm like, oh, and I reach in and I grab this, and I said, "Pull me out, pull me out." He grabs me by the leg and literally slides me out of this hole, and I go, "Found the money." But I mean, we were great together on that.
I think I seen a little bit of that video. Maybe you sent some of that to me, and you guys were up there, and not only you guys, but the camera crew's up there, and it's hot, and you guys were sweating everywhere. So, I
think Randy might have posted some of it or something like that.
There may be some of that. Yeah, he took a little bit of he. I'm gonna say that, and I mean, I think of that man as a brother. I mean, an absolute brother. I think that, I mean, we know more about each other's families than normal friends do. I mean, we're that tight. And I laugh because I tell people, see, 628 Dirt Rooster is my biggest fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of any. I don't know that he's ever said a bad thing about me, other than that I can't sling a hammer very much. He did make fun of me in a video about me trying to tap this thing, but like a girl. But in the same regards, I'm same with him. I mean, absolutely one of the greatest guys that I've ever known in this. And it's funny because he reached out to me to collaborate on a job, and what he did, I hung up the phone going, "The heck's he want to deal with me for?" I mean, he's got 125,000 subscribers. I got like 7,500. What does he care about me for? Right. And but that made the best friend that I could have ever had in that guy. Right. He's beautiful.
Yeah, you guys sure do have a good connection. All you cutout guys down that way. I mean, it's really nice seeing you guys get on videos together and cutting up and having a good time. I mean, I just enjoy watching them when you guys put them out. It's great.
Well, Rodney just put a comment in there that he's got to start a trap out here in the next few weeks. That right there is a topic that I would love to sucker somebody into getting me on, and actually talking trap outs. That is an art form that has gone on for years that people have forgotten about. Now, and I say this, there's nothing that I've done that I can say that I invented. Okay. I'm sure somebody has done everything that I've done 100 times for 100 years before I ever come along. But when it goes back to that big, huge hive that I told you that I did with JP, and it took 2 days and all that other stuff going on. Randy comments on my videos, and I don't even have 500 subs. Dude, yeah, because he keeps up with he enjoys watching everybody's stuff and keeping up with it. I mean, and remembers people. Dude, I can't even remember my own name. If I see you at a conference and I walk by and I forget to go, oh crap, who's Tom? It's like, don't forgive me, because I don't even remember my wife's name half the time. I mean, my brain is fried, and it's probably because I've been overdosed with bee stings for so long. All right, that's what I tell her, at least. I said, you gotta understand that there's a side effect. I don't swell when I get stung, but it takes thought it fries my brain.
It's
So
internal swelling.
you know, yeah. It, and anyway, but trap outs, or so when we were doing that job and we got done, we caught the queen, we scraped all that other. JP started spraying honeybee gone up around in that void. We were trying to get the bees to quit going back to what they knew. All right, but get them to go to the box to what was the backup. Go to the smell, stay away from the void that you knew, because there's no more home here. So he sprayed some honeybee gone up in there. It was a short time after that we got to talking about that, and I had a job come up, and I had some honeybee gone with me. I had a squirt bottle. Guy calls me up and he says, "Hey," he said, we just cut this tree down in a lot that we're clearing, and it's full of bees. You want to come get them?" Okay, sure. So I grabbed the drill and I grabbed the stuff, because I had this thought process that if I could figure out where the colony was in this void, if I come in here and here just a little bit past down those ends, I could smoke and honeybee on them and run them right back out their front door. And I tried it, did it a couple times in some trees. It worked out really well. And Scott and I were talking about it one day when I had to get some more honeybee gone, and he said, "Man, you call it a forced abscond." And I went, I'm going to have to put a T-shirt out now. Forced abscond, I'm the king. Well, that's where that concept started coming from. And so when I started doing trap outs, or having to deal with, because I wouldn't want to do them, but every once in a while I would have to. I would always try to force abscond them, but I would set that cone up and set the box up and everything else, and I just watched and observed the steps and stages through doing trap outs and what to expect when we would do those things. And the program worked good for me. I mean, I used to get a kick out of it, because everybody swore up and down, "You'll never get a queen. You will never get a queen out of a trap out." But why don't you get a queen out of a trap out? You got to understand, now there's different time frames and things, but I'll give you this much. What if you walked out to your beehive and the bees could come out, but they couldn't get back in? All right. After so long, we have the concept that the bees that aren't returning, okay, they still have food and they have resources in there. And eventually they're going to run out of those resources, and they're going to have to come out, and they're going to have to start getting more. Well, the problem is that oh yeah, I agree, Rodney. I mean, cinder block walls are great for doing forced absconds, but the less you have to protect the inside of that hive, what comes in behind it? Hive beetles. All right, so now you can actually, towards the end of a trap out, the bees will abscond that colony and come out and get away from it, because the hive beetles have took it over. I've learned that if you cut a tree down and that tree gets opened up, it will take about 12 hours for that colony to get overrun by hive beetles. They will smell that in the air, and all of a sudden you'll have thousands of hive beetles all up in that void. Okay, if you ever have a tree cut down, the comb generally will collapse, depending on how big the colony was open, or how much space was in that void, and how wide those combs were. So the tree falls down, the combs are going to collapse on each other. Okay, the combs collapse, they can't flow the air through there. The brood that's in there is going to start to sweat, and then it will end up rotting quicker, and then you get hive beetles coming in there, and they're just taking over everything. If your queen gets caught in between the comb and they don't get her out, the bees will stay there and try their darndest with what they have. If they can make one queen cell, they're going to do it. Does that make sense? If they can make one queen cell, they will stay there until they can get that cell hatched out, and then they'll take off and leave. But if the queen did not get squished in when the tree went down, and they can get her out, then they're going to force her out, and you'll see 5 pounds of bees hanging up in a tree very close by, and you'll have foragers going back and forth down to that colony, filling up their bellies to get as much out of there as they possibly can, because the hive beetles have run them out. They won't stay there very long. But if you ever pull up and they tell you, "Hey, we just cut this tree down yesterday, and it's got bees coming in," but you don't see very many bees, start looking at the trees around there, because there's going to be a ball of bees hanging in there. I've found them 100 times. If there's a ton of bees in the tree, it's because the queen got trapped in there and she couldn't get out, and they will stay there then.
That's interesting.
What about wax moths? You ever seen any of those in there?
Wax moth and all the issues with the damage on that will come long after that. I mean, it takes wax moth. Your hive beetles are showing up. I mean, just immediately. It happens so quick that I literally had a lady, and I mean, you don't know how many are in there to start with, but I can tell you when you show up, and you could literally fill up. I could fill this whole jar up full of hive beetles. They weren't all there. That's just way too many. But I mean, they're just crawling in and out. They're searching for everything you can. There's no way that colony would have stayed there with that many in there to start with. So they come in through there and run them out. I've had some really great footage that just never turned into a full video of that very same thing that I wish that I could just pop up and show you. But it'll scare you how many hive beetles are in once that cavity opens up.
Hey, Yappy, do you think that maybe also, I mean, you're getting those hive beetles coming in, but do you think that where those bees had some of those guys trapped, in there, and when that tree fell or whatever, it breaks those traps loose, that kind of allows some of those hive beetles also to get in there and move around?
That's what I'm saying. I know there's hive beetles in there,
Yeah.
and the bees are doing a good job keeping them hemmed up.
Yeah.
But I mean, the amount of hives that I've removed and seen, you're going to see a couple of hundred in a really bad infestation inside grandma's wall or something. Yeah, there could be a couple hundred, depending on the time of the year. First part of the year, all through spring, it's not so bad. Midsummer into fall, a lot worse. They've just, it's almost like varroa mites. They've had that increase, but the bees have kept them in check and everything else. But I'm talking thousands of hive beetles, thousands of them, and it'll make you sit there and go, "There's no way they would have stayed in that void with that many beetles in there." Hey, who dat? Where'd she go? Hey, where'd she go? Hey.
She's here a second and gone. You know how kids are.
I know. I tell you what. Ow. Appreciate that. Thanks. Ow, my ear.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at
somebody was saying something the other day if they wondered if the hive beetles could sense like a stress pheromone coming from maybe a sick or a weak hive or something like that. And so, there's already hive beetles in there, and then more of them come and show up when they sense that stress pheromone, kind of similar to like robber bees. They were talking about possibly hives that get robbed out. They're releasing a stress pheromone that stronger hives maybe can pick up on, and those are the ones that get robbed out. And they're so kind of wondering if small hive beetles are being able to sense that same thing, so they know where to go.
That's been discussed. I've only looked at it at a very basic point of view, and that is when that cavity opens up and that smell of the colony itself gets out there, that just the smell of the colony, the propolis, the wax, the honey, all those different smells all together are getting out into the air, and that's what's attracting them to come through it. Now, which exact one, that they hone into versus another is another story. But I've heard that there's stress pheromones and some different things going on. I'm the first person to say research everything, question everything. Okay. Prove it right, prove it wrong, kind of figure it out from there. But I also think there's three different kinds of beekeepers. You got a hobbyist, you got that sideliner, and you got a commercial beekeeper. And when we get out of our mindsets that all three actually operate and do the same, then I think that the hobbyist will improve in a lot of different ways. Um, Fall in love with your bees, but you don't have to have 10 beehives out there because your credit card can afford it. All right. Go get 2 beehives and, you know, research what you want to get into and go from there. But the a hobbyist treating his bees like a commercial beekeeper does is actually, um, just because you got a cow hemmed up out in the backyard, all right, doesn't make you a cattle farmer.
That's right.
Okay. And no, I don't use the Bee Quick, Steve. I use Honey Be Gone. I've never used Bee Quick. I only use Honey Be Gone. But that's basically the same concept. I mean, if that's what you want to use, then it is what it is. I've always used Honey Be Gone, but we get so wrapped up into all this technical crap that we don't pay attention to the basics, which goes back to what did I say? Okay. It pissed off the bees. If you want to know what that meant, go back to about the 37-minute mark and start from there, and you can understand what means. I'm not telling that story again, but we're sitting here. We get so crazy about trying to figure out how to run before we can crawl.
That's true.
And I personally, I don't care. I expect Jamie Ellis to keep track of reaction pheromones or fear pheromones or sickness pheromones or whatever. Okay, that's Jamie Ellis's job. That guy went to college for 4 years plus to have a piece of paper that says, "Hey, I know enough about this bug that I can spend the rest of my life studying this bug, and people will listen to me." And I hope one day to shake his hand. I hope one day he gets to shake mine. But I'm sure he'll be honored. But the festival. Hey, that was by accident. Okay. But from the hobbyist standpoint, you figure out to keep it simple, stupid. And this is not okay. So I've not been paid to say this. It's funny because my second year in, I pictured taking 3 deep boxes, cutting the ends off them, and basically taking 3 deeps and putting them sideways. And because I always wanted to get into the top bar hives, and never ran across an actual top bar and put it to action. But I had friends that did. I actually did a video on one that was a top bar issue, and absolutely loved them. But I wanted a beehive where I could put X amount of frames in it, figure 30 frames, and be able to work that. And I just had my own thought process on it because of what I see in the natural. 80% of the bee removals I do are in between grandma's floors.
Yep, that's same here. That you see them and the comb is just lined up just like that all the way across.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that's not natural, but it's not unnatural. Okay,
Right.
They fill a void and then go in the direction of what it is. It just so happens that 80% of what I do, and it's because of construction, half brick, half vinyl. This is where the gap is, and this is where the access point is, and they go in, and that's what they do.
Yeah, they're just a
But I mean, all they're looking for is a void to get into and to grow in. Who's going to bed in Dothan? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. I put forth all this effort to stay up. This snotty cold nose, and you're going to leave me. Just go ahead and go. It's okay. we still have 50 other people hanging on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably be late for work and have hangovers tomorrow, but that's okay.
We don't have to work tomorrow, so we're good to go.
I don't either. I
Oh,
know
my
that's why I scheduled for tonight because I don't have to work tomorrow either. But they get in, so they
Yeah.
get into these voids and they just sit there and they grow. And when I see how well they grow, it made me want to go, I want to build this type of hive. All right. And then I come across Ricky's hives and I'm like, dude, the first time I saw them going, that was it. Oh, this is perfect. All right. But also it goes with thought processes. I mean, it's like we could do probably three or four different nights of just going through thought processes.
Mhm.
What is the one thing now, I've argued this for 10 years. Now, there's nothing that I'm coming up with that's going to be new to the bee scene. I know that.
You never know.
But I'm also recycling what? Insulation in hives. All right. There's three that are out there, and there's more. We all know there's more, but you got Apame, Hive IQ, and then we got Ricky's long hives that are a thicker wood, and that adds our value and helps retain the heat and different things. Like my standard hive, it's got an insulated lid, it's got thicker walls. All right, and in the I have notes of thought processes. Hey, Sarah, me and you need to email each other. iCloud that stuff probably, but but what's the one thing that's always common, Tom, with beehives that have been living? It don't matter if they've been there for a year, they've been there for 10 years. What's the one single common thing in every single hive that is in a wall or in between the floors that you remove? What's the one thing that's always the same?
Are you talking about? I'm not sure the direction you're headed with that. You're talking about the sheathing or the exterior layer, or an insulated wall. I'm not sure where you're going with that.
You're insulated. The temperature of the beehive is
yeah.
always
Okay.
the same.
It's a regulated temperature. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah.
It's always 70 degrees on, depending on, in a wall, it's always 70 degrees on one side of that wall.
Right.
Okay. When they're in between the floors, it's 70 above, it's 70 below, it's 70 down the sides. And I started, you can write it down that you get bees in between grandma's floor. It's going to be the entrance, let's go sideways here. Here's this little part right here. All right. This is where the wall is, where they're coming in. And this is the, like, going into the house. So they're growing this way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Picture this. They come in. Your first bit of comb is going to be the same as your 10th frame Langstroth. What's the outside frames always going to be in your 10 frame box?
Honey.
Right. What's the inside of that frame going to be? Honey and pollen.
Honey or pollen.
Honey and pollen. And then we move into the center and we get what?
The brood.
Yeah. But now here, it's the exact same in nature as what we're doing in those boxes. We've got honey, pollen, brood and pollen, brood. And then we put all of our honey at the other end. That's our expansion space. But all the extra honey's going in over there at that other end. And yes, they're still going to have it above them in the arches of the nest area. But that's the natural coming in the horizontal, the sideways.
That's something I've been thinking about for a while. And I'm sure, Ricky, you can answer this really easily. So your boxes have the entrance in the middle, not on an end.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that affect your brood laying pattern?
Yeah, that just allows the bees to move in either direction. I mean,
But
an entrance can be in different areas.
Does the light coming in have any effect on that queen?
I'm not sure. I mean, we did cut our entrance down from a 3/4 inch entrance down to about a 1/2 inch entrance. So they had propylized that 3/4 almost completely shut. So there was just, I swear they wasn't only about 2 inches there. So it's really amazing that the bees will create what they want, right? They'll find an entrance and the entrance might be here, but the hive's over here. So I mean, I've seen, and Yappy can say this, I've seen the entrances all kinds of different directions, and I like the center just because when I do my super hive, that allows that to be there. When I do my flow hive, that allows the brood to be there and allows you to squeeze into those flow frames. So, but the entrance can really be wherever you wanted that, I think.
Yeah. Now I asked Ricky the same thing because
Yeah.
we literally talked about where the entrance was being on the side of his boxes as opposed to the end based on what I've seen. But now there, I could look it up and tell you which video to go look at. But I did a removal in a lady's basement where I dropped the ceiling tile, and they were in between the floor joists. All right. But once you cut that thing open and opened it up, it literally, there was just the outer band board, and then it come into that whatever 12, 16 inches in. All right. But their entrance was literally right in the middle. Okay. They were coming up over the brick and getting up in there, and they literally still had honey, 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 brood all in the middle, extra honey on the other end. But the entrance was in the side. Same exact situation what Ricky's got. It's weird because what we look at as uniformity for a purpose, they still have that, but they're just doing it for different reasons than what we think they should be doing. That brood chamber was still right there in the middle, or their brood nest. It was all still right in the middle. All right.
Yeah.
And they were coming right into the middle of it, but they were still. It's the honey. The honeys, they were insulator. Okay.
Yeah.
And they put that there, and it's just outside. It's just outside the nest, and then you got honey. And as that nest expands, less honey gets put in here. All right, and we just start putting brood in it. We utilize this honey. We put brood in it, and it expands, and it just keeps going. All right. It wouldn't matter if I drilled a hole in the end of my horizontal hive. All right, and let them come and go, because that's one of the hives that I just got at the Nobby Expo from Ricky. I'm literally covering that hole up, and I'm putting my entrance on the other end of it because I want to watch him do that. I want to watch the difference. The only difference it makes in his hive is where you've got a divider here, a divider here. You've got 10 frames going this way, 10 frames going that way, and you've given them that center to work with. Okay, they're going to grow, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to put brood in the middle. They're going to put the honey on the outside, and then as they expand, you give them another frame. You're just moving your divider over one, hold a frame in, and you can grow them like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So they're slowly expanding, going that way, to where if the hole was on the end of the hive, and they're coming and going in there, I may give them 5 frames to start with. This is how I would manage it. I don't know what Ricky's point, his experience over the years that he's been building these. All right. I'm new to this. I'm literally coming into my first complete year with actually having worked one of his particular hives and watching that grow. But now my next one is literally going to have the entrance on the end of it, and I'm going to give them 5 frames, and I'll dump, however many bees I get from removal, I'll dump 5, put them in on 5 or 6 frames of bees, give them that time frame to build that comb, and then I may give them 2 more, and I will control their expansion as I go, as opposed to going like this. It'll end up just being hop, skip, and a jump, 1 more, 2 more frames, and it's just another process of managing them.
Well, I had read some literature talking about whenever the queen goes to do some breeding out in the drone congregation areas, that sometimes the drones intentionally damage the queen so that her eyesight isn't the best, so that she'll be less likely to want to come back out for another mating flight because of the light. And so some people had made the claim that if you put a slatted rack underneath, in between the entrance and the first brood box on a traditional Langstroth, that her brood pattern goes further down because there's less, the light isn't right at the bottom of the frames. And I was curious if she was still doing a full brood pattern in the in the horizontal, but it sounds like the bees show you that they know, and they built a propolis curtain to fix that solution themselves.
Yeah, and I think somebody else had a question there about the entrance size being over 2 to 3 inches. Yappy, have you seen anything over that size? I mean, do you see? There you go.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, all the time. You can. What we do in our beehives. I mean, I could walk out to any one of my Langstroth, and they're more than 2 or 3 inches wide. I mean, they're 10 inches wide.
Mm-hmm.
But now, as far as in the feral side of it, yeah, I see it all the time. I mean, I've seen holes as big as a pizza in the side of a tree, and bees coming and going and going up into it because it was 100-year-old tree. You know, if it's that big of a problem or that hard for them to have to protect, they'll propolis the stew out of it if they have to.
Right.
You know, I mean, they'll deal with whatever they got to deal with. It's just a matter of once you get in that hole, what else is there blocking or what else is doing. But I mean, I've seen an entire wall separate where a brick, you know, stopped and it separated, and it'd be 10 feet tall, and bees were coming and going all up and through there. You know, and it wasn't so wide, but it was 10 feet tall. I've had literally, I mean, trees where you could stuck a basketball in a hole, and bees were working, you know, living up in that thing for years. So I don't know. I hope that's helps Steve's question.
I've been purposely keeping some of my entrance reducers in Hive starting this last year. Myself, you know how most of your bottom boards have a 3/4 inch piece of lumber on there, and then you set your deep box on there. So your entrance is 3/4 of an inch tall by whatever if you have an 8-frame box or 10-frame box, your entrance will be full open. I never felt like, even on a strong colony, they needed quite that much space. This is just my own thought process. I don't have any kind of a science behind it, right? But I actually started leaving some of the entrance reducers in on the larger opening, which is maybe 3 inches or so. And honestly, some of them I had next to it that were similar sized colonies, I didn't really notice any difference. And I'm kind of starting to become not a fan of a full 3/4 inch tall opening. I know some of the solid bottom boards have where you can flip them reversible and they'll only have 3/8, which I think seems more appropriate, where there's less area to defend, especially for a smaller colony. But I pulled up a picture here of a cutout that we did this last year. This kind of goes with, I don't know how to share it on here if that's even possible, but I'll hold it up to the camera. This will show you a little bit, and it doesn't have the full range of the picture of showing the sides, but I don't know. You can see the honey on the top, and then it kind of has that curtain or that rainbow, if you will.
Yeah.
Going down the side. And I think, like you said, they do use it as an insulator. We did another one last year that was probably one of the largest ones I've ever had done. It was in a 2x10 floor structure between the first and second floor. And it stretched from a chimney all the way to the front wall on the side. I took the side band board out and it stretched for almost 14 feet. But what they did is on the outside where there was a gap between the brick and the band board in the bottom, probably about 3/8 of an inch, that went for quite a ways. So they had a long entrance. What they had done, this kind of shows a little bit of it.
They put the honey on the outside.
There you go.
Okay.
Once you got further into this,
Where the brood was.
the combs actually ran perpendicular to the outside of the wall. So like they used that as like a curtain on the outside.
Yeah.
Maybe a barrier from any potential predators or it probably helped to
Temperature regulation.
Yeah, regulate the temperature inside there, and using that honey as that insulator of sorts, if you will.
Tell you, when I first got into this, my very first the colony that I told you the guys helped me to get those bees out and everything else, I nursed those bees through winter. We ended up on that job we didn't get the queen. I had to order a queen. Got a queen put in there, and for whatever reason, something happened, and late in the going into probably the end of September, the colony swarmed or something happened, but they ended up reproducing a queen out of that deal, and where I had a ton of bees, and then lost a bunch and built it back up, and then whatever, I literally I've nursed 3 frames of bees in a 10-frame box I stuffed old T-shirts down in between there, or on both sides of I pulled 7 frames out, literally stuffed T-shirts down in there, and then set a top cover on that with a little oval hole in it, and put a medium on top of that, and then ended up filling that thing up full of sugar and babysat, nursed 3 frames of bees and a queen through winter, and I've always looked at this stuff so unconventional, but I tell you, this one, you're going to find out. I'm going to do this just because I've always wanted to do it, and then I've never really put forth the effort to say, okay, it's time to finally do it. I'm going to, and I'm sure somebody's done this before, but I want to do it. I'm going to take and cut me a bottom board, and I've already got them, where I'm going to take a lid, a beehive lid, okay, like a migratory top, where it won't hold water. But I'm basically going to put a bottom on a deep, so there's no entrance at the bottom. I'm going to stack a deep on it, but I'm going to take I'm going to take a bottom board and flip that sucker upside down and set it on the top. And I want to put bees, 10 brand new frames, put a couple pounds of bees in there, entrance reducer upside down. I'm literally going to throw bees in that dang box upside down. The boxes will be straight, but
right.
Yeah,
I put
This
a
is
bottom
what they do.
because they tell you they always build from the top and
They
they work
do.
their way down. So
That's right.
it's gonna be a mock wall. I know when I talked with Victor from Hive IQ. Tell you what, we got it made, okay? Because them son of a guns, they load up them trucks. We send ours to Almonds. All right, we got some broker in between and somebody driving them out there, and hey, here's my 40 hives and you're 50, and we put them on a trailer. Can't wait till they get back. Cut me a check. Them suckers in Australia, they load them bees up on their trucks and they go with them, and they stay out in the fields and are out where they're doing for 30 days at a time. At least Victor and them do. But they take their knapsack rolls, and I mean, they go out there like it's a flipping wagon train, okay? But him and I were talking, and they pollinate everything single brood box, all right, excluder and double deeps, and the bees will, they start their coma and their honey production or honey storage up high, and they'll get that top box completely filled, and they're capping it off. And when the bottom box gets to be about 80%, they pull the top box off, and they go extract it. All right, leaving that bottom box still sitting there in that 70 to 80% window. Once they get all those wet boxes, they bring them back. They raise that 80% up, put the 70 or put the wet box down, put the 80 on top of it, put the lid back on it. Okay, we'll see you in another week or two. And that's how they rotate their stuff out. But it's just a matter of, you want to get really good about beekeeping and understand beekeeping. Yeah, there's certain management practices we got to do. We got to check mount counts. You're either going to treat you or not. I don't care. All right, but you keep up with your problems that can affect. But pay attention to bees. Listen to the bees.
That's right.
Manipulate your bees.
That's right.
What can you do with those bees? There's a guy that he was in North Mississippi, and he would have, and it's about like the setup on one of your hives that you make. He would literally have a double deep setup, some double deep or triple deep setup, and it looked like a barn. You'd have your stack, and then you'd have your little sides that come off of that, right? Mm-hmm. And he'd have 2 or 3 boxes sitting there, but the way it was set up was he was running back to back single deep hives with queens in there, and then there would be an excluder on top of that with a little cover board. All right, but he could stack all his honey boxes up on top of that, and it was literally both of those colonies were filling those honey supers up.
Mm-hmm.
It was the thing about it is not like it's some great way of doing this. Commercial guys would turn around and say that's not feasible. A sideliner would say that's not feasible. But in a hobbyist standpoint, all right, it's something that would be fun, all right, to
Oh, sure.
just
Absolutely.
to learn from that. Because
Right.
how can I take that and even manipulate it?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's the way my brain thinks. I mean, it's like, what can I do to take this and manipulate it even more?
Yeah.
Right.
I
So
know.
we kind of mess around with our hives a little bit like that. Like we right now have just under 100, so like 92 hives ish right now. And we have out yards, but the ones that we keep at our house are kind of like our experimental hives, or things we're just playing around with, like seeing what we can do with. It's where all of our horizontal hives from Ricky is. It's our art gallery out in the backyard, our Ricky Work art gallery. Anyway, so the one hive that we got from Ricky, I do my queen rearing out of, and I keep it at 10 frames, and we just harvest frames like, oh, I can't even tell you how many frames we harvested out of that box this spring, because she just kept building up and building up and building up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we do, like in our backyard. Even though we have a lot of hives, we keep some that we can like mess around with and experiment and do this or that or the other thing with, So it keeps it fun.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got into this, the biggest thing that people talked about was you put your bees in the box, you let them get their frames built up, and then what's the next thing you do? Well, you add another box. Well, what's the process? How do we add another box? We'll just throw it up on there? No, you checkerboard. Remember
Mm-hmm.
checkerboarding? And doing all this and that. Well, okay, make that happen. That'll work. But let me tell you what happens with bees when you're not careful with bees. Okay. How many times have you heard people swear up and down that bees don't like plastic frames or plastic foundation?
A lot.
Okay. But yet I'd never have a problem with it. Almost never. Almost. I've had out of the thousands of frames that I have run through my bee yard, I can tell you of 3 boxes that cross-combed.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they do that? Once I tell you this, it'll all of a sudden, it's like the little bell's going to go off in your head and go, holy crap, why didn't you think about that? But now you may have, so I'm going to give you the opportunity. Why do they do that?
Well, I usually say either the frames weren't waxed well or they weren't spaced properly.
I'm also going to add one thing to that. I also think if you have a small cluster of bees, it is much harder for them to build out a full frame. I've noticed before, I feel like that they'll cross-comb that a little bit more often if the cluster of bees is not good or their nectar source is starting to slow down.
I agree. But let's go a little bit more in depth in this thought process. Okay. I make this analogy and tell the story all the time. Okay. You can, and this is something that you as a human can picture. I hand you a spoon, and I say, dig me a koi pond out on the side of my yard. Dig me a hole that I can plant, a Christmas tree in. If I hand you a spoon and say, dig me this hole, you can see the end of that job, right? But I hand you that same spoon and I say, dig me an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Ooh, that one's pushing it. But if I say, dig me a 10-acre lake, you can never see the end of it. Okay. Now, when we put too few bees in too big of a box, there's 2 things that's happening. Too few bees means that they don't have enough bees to collect the resources and build. Okay. So now we don't give the bees credit for being resourceful. You can take those fancy heavy duty wax box frames and, plastic frame foundation, all one piece from Acorn or Peerco or whoever else you want to. And you could dump it in there and then you put 1 pound of bees in there and you could throw all the sugar water you want to on top of it. And they're still going to screw it all up.
Oh yeah.
Because what happens is when you open the space, the bees lose their communication process.
Ooh.
you spread all of that pheromone out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The one thing that happens whenever you walk up to a beehive and we crack that lid and we lift it up, what when we just whoosh, okay, you have literally just sucked every bit of all their communication process out of that beehive.
Mhm.
Why do you think they're getting pissed off at you? Because you went whoosh, and now you know it's kind of like walking in the room with somebody, you didn't realize somebody was in the bathroom and you come on, open up the door and they're all freaking out on you. The same thing. I mean, that's what your bees are doing. They're freaking out.
Yeah.
But when we have too few bees in too big of a space, they're looking at it going, okay, I know we've got to build to continue to live, but all I'm seeing is row after. It's like going to Walmart warehouse and it's just row after row after row, and you don't know where anything's at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and all you were going over there to get was some refried beans, and you can't even figure out where those are at. And I
That's
like
right.
refried beans, so I'm telling you, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But they will also have spread out, so now you have a little patch of bees here and a little patch of bees over here that know that they have a job to do, and that job to survive is to build comb. But we don't have the resources because we didn't have very much when we got here. We've had to eat half of it because we haven't had anybody going out and getting groceries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But now this cluster starts to build a little bit, but you know what they're doing? They're resourceful, like I said. And now they're going to start stealing the wax
Pulling the
from
wax
around.
off the frame. Yep.
They're pulling that and they're moving it around.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing is that once that first little bit of comb is going to get done and it's beautiful, but now they pulled that wax off from over here to use it over there, and now that plastic means nothing to them.
Right.
It's not a roadmap anymore. It's a divider. You could call it wood, you could call it plastic, you could call it paper. It don't matter what you call it, but there's no wax on it. Because there's no wax on it, they go, oh, I guess we need to start going sideways because we've got this divider and this divider, and they will utilize now this space right here in between those frames. They can see the end of that job.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer a complete aisle down there at the Walmart that's 150 feet long. Now all we have to do is we have to make this space.
Yeah.
And even though it's tall, it's only this wide.
Right.
Right.
And where they start doing that. And that's where they get it all screwed, all that screwed up. It's because you pay attention to what's going on with the bees. Think, why did they do this? Justify the thought process, and all of a sudden you'd be like, that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
But all these years I've heard people crying because bees don't like plastic foundation. Well, no, they don't like plastic foundation. It does not have wax on it.
That's right.
Mhm.
But everything I've ever got that had the wax on it, I've never had a single problem with it. They loved every bit of it. So
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, I agree. We found before too, kind of tagging along with what you're saying there. If we get closer to winter and we have a cluster of bees and we use mainly 8-frame equipment in an 8-frame box, but I don't feel like they're filling it out well. And I know that they're not going to be brooding up because they're brooding down because we're well beyond the summer solstice and we're getting closer to the winter. We'll actually reduce them down into a nuke box. And sometimes I've even gone as far as put them in a 5-frame nuke and maybe end up getting to a point where I can put another 5-frame nuke on top of them or a box on top of them, like a super, and then have some honey frames in there and let them try to build out or store in some already built comb to where they just have either a 5-frame nuke or, again, if the cluster's grown a little bit, a doubled up 5 frames. So I've got 10 frames on top of each other. I feel like it's much easier for them, especially in the wintertime where we're in the Midwest, so we're in that transitional mark from south to north. And so we get plenty of cold snaps, but we get some warm too. It's just kind of seesaws back and forth. I feel like they've done much better for me in that nuke box or even a doubled up nuke than they would in the 10-frame box that goes out. Yep. That's just my experience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of research in that nuke box. A lot of people think they do a whole lot better with those chambers being narrow, more close, being able to work up and down. So
they don't have to move side to side in the winter, which is much more difficult for bees to move over frames and recluster, especially when the cluster's small. It's much easier for them to slowly gravitate up, They don't have to move over frames and recluster. They're going to starve out on a few frames if they have food way at the edge of the wall, but the cluster is not big enough to kind of take over and move over. They end up starving out over an area, and you had a frame of food on the far outside edges. And like, well, I had food in there. How come they died?
Right.
You know? But, you know, that's just something that we don't really think about that much. And we, like, you know, Yappy's saying, you have to think like the bees. And why did the bees do something? How did they do this in nature? Because there are a lot of areas of beekeeping, you know, even with the Langstroth hive, it's easier for us to manage, but there's a lot of things that are kind of unnatural about it. I had a guy the other night that was had kind of poked at me a little bit, and he was talking about, you know, feeding the bees sugar water is unnatural. And I said, okay, I agree. You're absolutely right. Feeding bees sugar water is unnatural. I said, but let me go a step further. He said he was claiming you shouldn't feed the bees. And I'm like, you know, if that's the way you choose to do it, that's great. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. I'm not trying to change your mind. But I said, if you get to a point where if these bees don't have food, they're going to die, right? I mean, I don't care if you like sugar, if you would rather feed them sugar, nectar, whatever it might be. If they don't have the food, they're going to die. And I'm going to choose to feed them sugar water over that, you know? So, you know, he was like, you know, you shouldn't feed them that. It causes dysentery and this, that, and the other. And I said, well, I don't know that I really fully agree with that 100%. But I said, when it comes to being natural, you've taken honeybees, which aren't even native to this continent. That's unnatural. Okay. You put them on a continent. I'm not saying they can't thrive just fine, but that's unnatural. We put them in these 3/4 inch thick wooden boxes. That's unnatural. They're used to being in tree cavities that have a little better insulation value in them. You know, I said, there's so many different things that we're doing now when you're managing bees that's unnatural than what their real environment is. So I'm like, you know, where do you draw this line? I can't go into a maple tree in my backyard where they have combs in there and, you know, cut it up and manipulate it and then put the tree back together. You know, this is the best that we have to be able to get in bees and manage them and manipulate them for our benefit here. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we do that are quote unquote unnatural, I suppose.
Well, you know, hobbyist, sideliner, commercial. Okay. We have fields full of cows that, you know, they go out, they graze, they drop a baby. The baby goes to the auction. The guy, you know, that's the cattle or the processing people, they buy them at the auction. They carry them out there, they fatten them up, and they process. And that's farming.
Mm-hmm.
That's point blank. That's farming. So, a box was created that is this wide, this tall, 10 frames. It's got this type of bottom, and this was created to help keep bees in an easier fashion. And then that even got manipulated just a little bit further to where we could put 4 of them on a pallet, stack them 4 tall, put them on a truck, and now we can carry them across the country. That's
right.
Farming.
Right.
All right.
I'd say that it was created so that you didn't kill your bees every time you went to harvest your honey, like with the scalps.
That's right.
Right. And that, which is another process or another reason for. But over that course of time, let me ask you, you know, I don't know what the original, and I've seen the plans for and everything else. I don't know what the original thickness was for the 10 frame Langstroth hives and how thick the boxes themselves were. Everything was put together for a standard. There's a lot of reasons that it was done, and then it became utilized in the commercial process, right. and like I said, adjusted and gone from there. But it still allowed it for farming. It took the natural out of it. What we talked about, what you said with the thickness of the trees, that you know, we're recycling the insulation thought processes all over again. Okay, we build boxes so we don't have to cut trees down for honey.
Spot on.
Well, here's the point. If a tree has enough hollow in it to maintain a bee colony to live and thrive and survive in it, the tree's already dying. You're not cutting down a good tree.
That's a good point.
A good tree doesn't have a hollow in it for bees to live in.
That's one thing
Right.
that Tom always tries to tell people when they call with bee tree, bees
Yeah.
and trees. Like, this tree needs to come down, because it's expensive to take a tree down. Like, the tree needs to come down, whether we take it down because there's bees in it or just because, guess what? It's hollow. This tree is on its way out, or it's going to collapse,
Well,
on your house or something else.
I've always told customers this when they call and they've got bees and they need them removed. And I'm like, well, let me ask you this. First of all, how high is the entrance off the ground? If it's 15 feet off the ground, and I'm like, did you just notice them, or were they bothering you or stinging somebody? Well, we just seen them there and we need them gone. And I'm like, well, this is my thought. And I'm like, we always want to control our environment around us, right? I think that's kind of what we do as humans, and that's kind of somewhat of a human nature, or how we are today. And I'm like, if the bees aren't really bothering you, and I'm like, and you don't really have the funds to remove this tree with bees in it, I'm like, and they're not bothering you, just leave them alone. I'm like, if it's a problem for you because you've got an issue or a health issue, or there's a concern, or it's being problematic, okay, I get it, maybe remove the tree. And then, like, well, can you get them out without? And I'm like, well, you can try to do a force abscond. And that was the point that I made. If you have a large cavity in a tree, the tree's not healthy to start. And probably what's going to happen is the first time you get a really heavy wind or a storm activity, a good portion of that tree is going to bust, and then you're going to have bees everywhere, right? So I guess it depends on what people are really looking to do there.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said in that, and I look at the same thing as well. How high up is the entrance? If it's on the ground level or 5 feet up, then the biggest problem that somebody's going to have is every time they go and mow the grass and they go past there, they're going to get dinged. All right, but you get 10, 12 feet up in the air, that's borderline. You should be able to get past the tree. And I'll explain to people, say, listen, you make your swipe and you go around and you keep going. Take the long way around.
Don't hang out there.
Yeah, because after 2 or 3 minutes, they're going to chill back out. Okay. And you're going to make your next swipe. But this is what to expect. But yeah, you get, I did a video and I titled, she found this in her tree and immediately called me. It blows my mind that I literally, at the beginning of this video, I'm showing where the colony of bees was up in the top of this tree. And that thing, it couldn't be that round up in the top of it. But the colony was living up in the tree. It wasn't, a split off. They literally were coming and going from this trunk.
Sure.
This guy swarping down, he was going to climb that tree and go up 30 feet up in the air and kill those bees. I said, well, why? I said, you've got a greater chance of getting stung by a wasp hanging off the corner of your house than you're going to be those trees or those bees up there.
And see,
they probably been there for years and you didn't know it. Whatever. Part of the biggest, our job as beekeepers is to educate the people who are afraid of what we adore.
That's right.
Our school systems have failed our children. That's and they failed me. I'm a little over 12 years old, not by much, but our schools have failed in the understanding of what the process is and the need for just having the pollinators. Okay, much less to turn around and make everybody afraid of. Because I get people call me in April and May saying, "Come and get these yellow jackets," knowing that they ain't yellow jackets, man. They're bees. But then I get people calling me in September when they're probably yellow jackets.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're saying, "Man, you need to come and get these honeybees. I don't want to have to kill them." And I'm going, and until you pay me to get rid of them, they're yours anyway. I don't care. Yeah. But at the end of the day, but our schools have failed our people, because you see in my comments where I thought all the bees that went and got the honey was the boys. And they're able.
That's what they see in the bee movie.
Because they saw the dang bee movie, and I'm sitting here going, if your education level,
like
it came from a cartoon,
is incorrect.
Yes, it came from. My question is this: when was the last time you saw 10,000 bees on a plane actually land a plane? All right, and do like this with the airplane out. Oh my goodness! But I'm still trying to deal with people that swear up and down. Now, Brett, the Hornet King, He does hornet removals and
Right.
wasp and everything else.
He's like in Delaware or something, isn't he?
Pennsylvania. And I
Pennsylvania,
swear to God,
yeah.
people see him removing his stuff and he puts it right out there. Here, I've got my shot vac. Here, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna feed the brood to my chickens and everything else. But then people hear me talk about my BVAC, and every other comment here this past since Brett took off and went really and has gone really good on his channel. They come to my channel and they're like, why is he killing them bees? In fact, I had a lady that she comes in there about every couple of weeks under a new name, and it's literally the same thing. Google search it. Vacuuming bees kills bees. You're killing bees. You're a bee killer. Blah blah blah. And I was just like, yeah, I kill them and then I batter and fry them. And I swear, if you don't try this, it's a delicacy. You are missing out because you. But I love to mess with people.
I have had.
Wait, DC bees. Wait, DC. Did you have a question? Hey, Dave. 100% Yappy. Oh well. Okay, good. No, the bee movie was kind of like the bees are. Amen. Both of them were stupid.
Well, it was a movie made on a joke he made offhand to somebody. So I mean.
But I'll tell you what, I wish I could have invested it because he made a ton of money off of it.
Right.
They made a movie.
Yeah. God almighty, it's been 2 hours and 30 minutes I've been on here with y'all.
I know, Yappy. I tell you, Yappy, it's been great. And it just continues to get better. I keep saying, I got to get in bed. But, man, listen to you talk, man. I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's like I'm absorbing stuff. And you're talking about listening to the bees or thinking about what the bees think, and you and Tom have been talking back and forth. It's been great tonight. I tell you, I've really enjoyed having you on, and man, I'd like to get you back on again sometime and continue this conversation. But
I'd be glad to, as always.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let everybody go tonight, and if you haven't subscribed to Yappy's channel, please do so. If you see him at conferences and stuff, come up and talk to him, man. He's a blast to be around. I'll be honest with you. He had my group laughing all weekend. I mean, at the expo is absolutely great. So, but I do appreciate you, Yappy, and I thank you for coming on and being a guest tonight, sir.
Well, you need to screen your viewers and your commenters just a little bit better because I don't know who let Joseph Rawls in the room, but that son of a gun's been beating me up all night. I'm just telling you.
He's worked, Jamie.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah's been great. I mean, she's just been wonderful. But yeah, Rodney, Joseph. Now you're killing me.
All right, guys, we're going to sign out here, and I do appreciate you guys, and we will have a live stream next week. I don't know exactly who it's going to be, but we will have another guest speaker on. I don't know if it'll be as good as Yappy, but we'll see. You never know. So, all right, guys, good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Appreciate you. Thank you.